Hey, what's up, comrades? As part of my ever-evolving way of trying to handle this shit, um, I'm gonna try this method where after I play a little bit of one of these games, instead of like playing the whole thing and then going back and trying to talk about it off the top of my head, I'm gonna try to do what I do with the anime and just do it as I go, and then I can just like splurge videos together at the end. That way, I'm not trying to remember something that happened like a month ago in some of these games. Some of these are just easier. You just kind of knock it out. But right now I'm playing Plague's Tale Requiem, the second one. And so the first one I enjoyed thoroughly. It's kind of like a stealth, third-person horror game. And it's all about, what's her name? Amicia. I think it's Amicia and her brother, little boy. I don't know. They say his name a lot, but I don't remember. Who's super annoying, but he has like the gift. I'll correct myself later in one of these other videos, but I can't remember what it's called. It's like the Vitae or the Volux. I don't know. It's some weird thing. Anyway, so he has the power to like of like the plague, and like he can control rats. And so you go through the game and you eventually, you guys are royalty in France, and your family gets like attacked by like the church or something who's looking for the boy because he has the power to control this stuff, and it's like a whole thing. I did a live play of it. You can go back and watch if you want, or you can just Wikipedia the story. I don't remember all of it. I played it like 4 years ago or something. Like it was a while ago, but I really enjoyed it. You like collect flowers and you have little missions, and like it's by Focus. Which makes like The Surge, or they publish a lot of stuff that I enjoy, like The Surge, and Lords of the Fallen, and other such things. What was that one? It was like a Mass Effect, a bunch of like kind of Mass Effect style games. They're lower budget but actually more enjoyable. And then that one where you're like a colonialist and you hang out with like the tree people, which I enjoyed it, even though it had like the ugly woman syndrome, where you have a character creator, but it was impossible to make an attractive woman. So I just made a handsome man, which was extremely easy. And it's like, what the fuck, right? Like, it should not be this hard. It's like infuriating. Anyway, this game does not have, as V from the internet, from the Romanian guy likes to put it, the California man jaw. What is it? the Innsmouth look, the California Innsmouth look, where women are just trans men. No, so Amicia, again, this game it doesn't do the like super hot anime thing either. So it's like Amicia looks like a preteen to teen girl, right? And then her mom's pretty, not buxom or anything crazy, but she looks like a pretty woman. So it's pleasant to look at, and even though it does the more kind of realistic thing, quote unquote, it's not like, ugh, what's going on? So I appreciate that, whatever the company that made this is. It's like Adobo, I think, or something like that. Anyway, so this one picks up shortly thereafter. So in the other game, you rescue your mom, who was just kidnapped from the church. You destroy the church there, like the cardinal or whatever that's running the show that's causing all these problems, who's trying to kidnap your brother so he could have the power of the rats. And you guys are headed off to like find a cure for your brother through like alchemy, because your mom's like a secret alchemist and she's got like a pupil. So you start off, and the tutorial's really, really good, because you start playing the game, and it just like starts introducing things to you and kind of like a slow roll, and it kind of reintroduces you to the characters and their actions. There's other boy who's like your mom's apprentice. I can't remember his name either, but you go and play in like a little castle, like a ruined castle area, and it teaches you how to dodge and how to hide and sneak and run and jump over things and use your sling, which is like the main kind of stuff. So then you proceed forward and you meet this boy named Tom, and you guys play this game where your brother like throws pine cones into the river, and you destroy the pine cones, and then Tom throws rocks in the pine cones, and he's like, "Oh shoot, I'm late. I better head out." And they're like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Because again, you're traveling in a wagon with your mom through this area, and he's like, "Oh, I got to work on the farm with my brothers and my dad. Bye." So he leaves, and you and your brother keep kind of exploring. You find this, you get to the ruined castle, and you get inside, and then dun dun dun, you find a bunch of dead bodies, and you're like, "What room?" And then this guy shows up, and then you see all these like burned beehives, And it's like, this is creepy as fuck, man. I love this company. This stuff is like, what am I playing? Because it does have like a mystical element to it, but a lot of it is not mystical. It's just like creeps being creeps. So then this guy shows up and he's got like a beekeeper outfit on. And this is like medieval France. And so it's super creepy looking, and you like run away, and the game teaches you more about how to do stuff and use your brother to like unlock doors and crap like that. So again, this whole tutorial is excellent. And eventually you guys like sneak away, and you come upon Tom, who's getting kind of beat up by his brothers, and you're like, let's just go. We don't want to get involved. We got to get out of here, because you play as Amicia. And then your brother's like, no, stop. And these boys are like, oh yeah, we're going to rape your sister. And then so you stab one as he's trying to do that, like as Amicia, and then the other one hits you in the face and starts holding you down, and then your brother freaks out, and you can hear like the men screaming. So he's clearly using his like dark rat powers or whatever. Then he wakes up on a beach by himself, and there's a phoenix, and you're like, the fuck is happening? And we find out later this is all a dream. But he follows the phoenix because it's his body. He's getting like the dark veins that indicate that he is the dark powers are coming, and that he's losing control. But then he follows the phoenix through like this mystical dreamland on this island, and eventually gets to these waters, and the waters like purify him, and he's like, thanks, Phoenix. And he wakes up in the back of the wagon with the apprentice, and Amicia and the mom are like driving the wagon. They're like, oh, we're almost at like this area where like the prince or something of Orleans is gonna like protect them. But then dun dun dun, they run into these guys where he killed like they got into fracas with him before, and they're pretending like, oh, that's too bad, you guys had like that weird issue, we're just gonna get going. But when it's like, no, I'm going to search the wagon, and they see the boy, and they're like, that's the boy. And then, they grab Amicia and throw her off the wagon. And then as Amicia, you have to like escape through like brush. And eventually they see you, and they set like the brush on fire, and you got to run. And then you get to a part where you can like sneak through. But I just fucking slaughter those dudes, because fuck them. Trying to rape me, bunch of assholes. So after I fucking killed them all and rescued my mom and the boys, we got back, we continued heading onward, and then we get to this nice quiet place, which is under the protection of like the Prince of Orleans, and it's this like beautiful town. And so the brother is like, oh, I want to look at the market, and the mom and the apprentice are like, all right, we're going to be in that house up there, so go ahead and we'll see you in a minute. So you proceed through the market, and it's very nice, and there's a lot of commentary about how, oh, this is so peaceful, I'm so excited to live here, this is going to be great, this is excellent, everything's going to be great. And eventually you get to the house, and then your brother starts getting sick again. I can't remember if there's like an impetus for that. I think it just happens. And so your mom's like, go get like the alchemist we're here to see. And she's like, I don't know where he's at exactly, but he's the one who gave us his house, so just follow the symbols. So there's like alchemical symbols everywhere. And so the apprentice goes with you to kind of help you figure out where to go. And eventually you get into the arena, like a coliseum, like an old Roman coliseum. And once you get inside, you see that, oh no, the rat plague is back. And like, oh no, we brought the rat plague with us. And that's where I kind of cut it off for the time. So now that they've entered the alchemist realm and found all the dead bodies, they bump into some mercenaries that are pretending to be city guards who are going around slaughtering people. But it's not just them, it's the rats. They're back. And Alchemist Boy does not believe Amicia that it's the rats, but he is shortly proven completely incorrect. We also level up here a little bit, and when I say level up, I mean we start having these open kind of arenas that we can sneak through and do whatever. And when we get through this one, which introduces helmets, which you can't just kill people with rocks using, which if they don't have a helmet, you can just like sling rock them to death immediately. And it also introduces archers. So once you get through that, Alchemist Boy's like, hey, so that was great, you killed all those guys, which I didn't. I was trying to be sneaky because I don't know if this game has some sort of tracker. And the more like Amicia kills, the more evil of an ending you get or something. I don't know. It's just so much easier to murder your way through this stuff. I'm not going to lie. Especially because I started having issues around this point with the like stuttering. It started with audio kind of stuttering, and I was confused because the video wasn't really doing it, but then the video kind of started doing it a little bit as well. And it was super confusing because I was having no issues, like zero issues before. So I messed around with the settings a little bit, put them on low, and it still didn't seem to do anything. I was playing on like a monitor, like a cheap monitor, during my like break at work. So that might be why, to be completely honest. So I'm going to try playing hopefully a little bit just on my laptop, which I mean I got like it's not like it's a gaming laptop. I think it cost me like $1,200. It's not so it's not like state of the art, but I should be able to run this like 3-year-old game at least low settings without stuttering. Like I was so confused. I was like, this should not be doing this. But we'll see. Maybe I'll tinker with it some more if it's still having problems. But because I kind of feel like this monitor thing is causing some of the issues. Anyway, we get through that part, and then we enter. We open up to like a new area, and the new area, like we get through like the initial kind of mercenaries or whatever. And then Amicia and Alchemist Boy, like, oh wow, there's like a tower, and there's like this village almost out of nowhere, just in like this random part of this other town. It's like, what is this? And then on the tower, you see the alchemist sign, so he's clearly over there. And then there's just like wooden walkways that are really high up, and I was like, the fuck's going on in this game? But as we try to cross them, of course, they break and we fall. And when we fall, there's a guy with like a torch, and he's like, no, please, God, don't kill me. And we're like, no, we're not those assholes. And then like, dun, 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 oh no, here's the rats show up. And you're like, hey, bro, just be calm and walk. Like, the torch is going to keep him away. And he starts freaking out, and he drops the torch. And then the rats start chasing you and Alchemist Boy, and you were able to escape. And then we get introduced to, like, dealing with the rats. So it's another, again, this is kind of like extended tutorial section. And it does a good job. It's just like, oh, hey, you can pick up a torch. Hey, you can do this. And this is the second game in this series. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, I don't know why you're even playing this game. So it's, light the braziers, throw this, and then eventually we get to an area where we gotta use alchemy to create like fire rocks and fire pots so that we can use those to light far away braziers, or we can make like a mini fire on the ground for a short period to run through. And we learn about having our companion do like, a lever or like a something while we do something, or holding something for us and all that stuff. So it's a lot of that kind of like puzzle solving gameplay. That is most of this game. And then right before I hopped off for my break, we get to another open area, and it's like, oh cool, we're right here. You can see the tower right there, but bro, there's mercenaries here too. So we got to deal with those assholes. And then double row, the rats show up. So now we got the mercenaries and the rats. So we work our way through all these assholes, the rats and the mercenaries and whatnot, and we eventually get inside the tower. Once we're in the tower, we, cutscene plays, and oh wait, no, there's a couple puzzles first. There's like a puzzle that the game just kind of walks you through. There's alchemical symbols, 2 alchemical symbols on like spinning metal things on each side of like the symbol of the actual alchemical thing that is like kind of printed on everything to show the way. And Luke is his name. I finally figured it out. Lucas. He's like, hey, you gotta make this look like the symbol of Jupiter, which looks like this. And so you just hit the thing with your sling until it pops around. Then it opens a door, and you follow it around. Eventually, you get to the Meister, and he's kind of an asshole. But he's like, come, let's go. And he calls Amicia the Guardian. He uses some French word I didn't pick up, but she's the Guardian. So apparently this is like a thing, right? So in the first game, we really focused on the vessel, who is Mark, the brother. Anyway, and how he's special and all this stuff. But it seems like the focus is gonna turn a little bit towards Amicia being the Guardian, whatever that means. We don't get too much information. They cutscene back to the household. The mom's super excited, and then like Marcus, the brother, is still having like a hard time, and so she sends Lucas and Amicia to go get some nightshade from the herbalist. They head out, and of course the road's closed, so they gotta sneak outside the village or the town so they can get nightshade from the herbal person, the florist, whatever you want to call him. So the way they find to do that is to go through first they head to the butchering district, the meat district, and then once they're in the meat district, they sneak into like where they dump all the rotting carcasses. So you got to walk your ass through that again, and of course Amicia is like, what the? And Lucas even more so is like, the fuck. And Amicia is like, you kind of get used to it. And he's like, is that something I want to get used to? Anyway, you push your way through a little bit, and you find, of course, guards who want to kill you. So you got to kill that first guard, and then you sneak around, and then the rats show up, and you got to get past the rats and more guards in kind of an open area. And again, I try to be sneaky, but it seems like the game really, really doesn't want to allow you to do that. So I don't know if it affects anything or what, because I'll be like trying to sneak, and it's like the only way to get past this area is to knock out the guard, either by killing. Well, it's just like, oh, so you get another item at this point. You get I can't remember what they call it, but it's like a white powder that turns off lights. And so this whole area is like, turn off the lights, turn off the torches that the guards are carrying, so they get eaten by rats and they die. Dun, dun, dun. So you do that, and it's fun. And I wasted some fire pots, which so far, I mean, I'm playing on easy, so I've not had any problems having resources and items for this, like, quote-unquote survival horror game. But I was wasting some fire pots trying to get past the rats, but because I forgot that, like, while they're eating on something else, they'll kind of like ignore you somewhat. Anyway, so we cruise past that area, and we gotta unlock the gate to get outside. And when we finally do, we actually follow some guards out there. Like, some guards head out, and then some other guards stay. So we kill that guard. We kill those guards. Again, the game like essentially forces you to kill them. It's like a pot full of stuff. It's like, oh, you can also use the white powder in a pot, and it can do a whole area of turning lights off. And so you throw that down, and they get eaten by rats. And then you and Lucas like open the gate, and then you got to run out, and then you're outside, and it's nice and peaceful and nighttime. And you run into your first workbench, which is also the first time I realized that using the workbench will crash your motherfucking game. And it's not because I'm playing a torrented version, by the way. I looked it up because I was like, oh, this is a fucking bug. Because it happened like 3 times. And it's an interesting bug while we're here. Because there's no way to like close the game. Like Windows button doesn't work, any of this shit. Windows button like stopped working after Windows 7, it seems. Because I had the same issue with Windows 10 where like the Windows button is supposed to like shut all the windows and bring you back to the desktop, and it like does not fucking do that anymore. Anyway, so Control Alt Delete, end task, it doesn't end the task. So then I open the command prompt and I'm like, fuck you game, kill task. And the game and the command prompt is like, that task doesn't exist. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Because I'm looking at it, and it's obviously using up like over 2 megabytes or gigabytes of RAM. Like, the fuck? That's a lot for like nothing happening. And then when I try to open up the game again, it's like game's already open. So like clearly Windows 11, you're a piece of shit, which, you know, anyone who uses it obviously knows. And you're a fucking liar, which I don't know which one's worse. Being a piece of shit's okay, I guess. Like the dung eater from Elden Ring. Anyway, so eventually I got on all these like Steam forums and whatnot, and I found out it's not me. It's the fucking game. It is not optimized for whatever reason. So it'll just periodically bug out and freeze the game. And universally what I read, and maybe other people had other experiences, but universally what I read, you have to restart your fucking computer. So I was like, okay, well it doesn't bug out right away. And this one guy was like, I just decided, fuck it, I'm not going to upgrade anything. And I still beat the game. Because the game's like, you know, all this stuff is like little bonuses. Like, one of the bonuses is like, oh, you can recycle stuff you have too much of. So you get like a little bit more like, garbage material to make items or whatever, or to upgrade. And then one of the bonuses I got was like, your sling's slightly quieter. It's like, cool. So far, it's been a big deal. Also, I'm playing it easy, so, whatevs. So I'm not too concerned about it. But I found that if I log in there, open the workbench, make the upgrades, and get the fuck out, like, super fast, I'm good. So that's eventually what I was able to do. And there's other upgrades. So those are two. The ones I already spoke of is what I took. So you go from there. You head down into some more tunnels and stuff. You find that, there's more guards out here killing people, and the rats are back. So you work your way through the garden, and eventually you see one of the guards accosting the alchemist. You're like, oh no, what are we going to do? And in my head, I'm like, okay, well, if I knock that guy out, he'll drop his torch, and then the alchemist will be okay. That was not the case. I knocked the guy out. He dropped the torch. The torch went out, which I have qualms with, but whatever. And then both of them got killed. And then Lucas is like, don't worry about it. We'll just go in there and find it ourselves. And I was like, all right, he seems pretty nonchalant about this whole situation. What are you going to do? So I snuck around, get through that gate, and then we're like in a work area. And at this point, Almesia is like, she has like a nervous breakdown. I've killed a decent amount of human beings, but I don't think that's why. It's like, because I feel like even if I had snuck and not killed anybody, the game would still, because it's like a cutscene. So I doubt this company makes this game, because this is like a AA game, has like multiple cutscenes based on tracking how many people you've killed or not killed. Especially because the game puts you in situations where you will fucking kill people. There is no option. So I feel like the killing people is like, I cannot believe, I haven't looked this up because I don't want to know until afterwards. But at this point, I'm like, I just don't feel like there's like a morality system that's going to affect choices or how characters act in this game. I could be wrong. Again, I'll look it up when I'm done. But I like the sneaky. The sneaking is much simpler. When you kill people, it's like you got to stop playing the game and watch like a kill cut scene. Sorta. It's not like a full cutscene, but like she like hits them with her sling a couple times and then clumps on their back and like strangles them or stabs them, and then they're making noises. It's a lot easier just to sneak. So I really just would rather sneak. And there's not enough sneaky games. I like how they do sneaking in this. It's just sometimes I feel like it takes so much effort to like throw a pot over there, toss a rock over there, sneak over to this thing, jump here, run across here. When it's like, or I could just kill that motherfucker and walk across. So that is what I will be doing. Okay, so she's having a nervous breakdown in like this storage shed, and Lucas is like, "Hey man, I'm just gonna go get the nightshade," and she's like, "No, I gotta go with you." And he's like, "You're shaking, just chill. I'll be okay. I do this all the time." And I was like, "No, you don't." Anyway, so you're like following along me while I murder like batches of people. Anyway, so he heads off, and this is all like cutscene, and Amicia is just kind of being very nervous. She's like, "Why am I shaking? What's wrong with me?" And then she starts like pacing, and then she hears Lucas yell, and someone's like, "Get this thief!" And she's like, "Oh no!" And so then I do a sneaky sneak through a big open area, and this one I was able to sneak through without killing anybody, I'm pretty sure, until you get to Lucas, and then you have to kill the guy that's got her, and then Amicia just is like, "Fuck it," like no joke. That's not what she says, but no joke, like fuck it. I'm going to kill everybody. And so then you're in like an arena, and with your sling and with the various objects in the room, you murder like 10 guys maybe. Like they're like up, you're like in a room, and there's like a second level that you can't get to, and dudes just keep hopping down, and I just keep slinging them to death. And then we get introduced to the shield guy, and the shield guy will like deflect the rock, so you have to like sneak up behind him, and so you have to use like the white powder in the room that's already set up to bust, to like stun him for a second so you can sneak behind him, and then you like do your like strangle move on him. And then eventually there's a guard with like full body armor, he's like a fucking space marine, but like in French armor, comes touring in, and he just like knocks you out. And then you and Lucas end up in prison. And they're like, "We're gonna get to torture you good, because you killed a bunch of my men." And that's as far as I got on this part. So I broke my mic a little bit, so hopefully this still records. Anyway, so Amicia and Lucas are still working on getting that nightshade, but now they're in prison. Brum, brum, brum. Yeah, they got in prison last time. So Lucas has a trick up his sleeve. Fapaccio, I think is what he calls it. What it does is it's a smoke bomb. He throws dust into like the fire, or a little pouch into the fire, and it creates smoke. So you use that, and you're able to escape. And then you find your way out of the Bastille. It's not the actual Bastille, but whatever this like prison is. And we overhear the guards talking about how they're getting ready to essentially burn the city to the ground. They don't come out and say it, but that's what they did in Grandia? That's not the name of the town. But in the previous game, Amicia's like original home county, or parish because it's French, was Grancia. I don't remember. It starts with a G. It's like Grania or Grancia or something. Anyway, they're going to probably burn this place down, she surmises. But you're able to finally get into their warehouse in this prison, and you're able to find your nightshade and all your crap they stole. Hooray, now we got our sling back and everything. And then you use some of this Fapaccio on a ballista that you just happen to find in this place, and you blow the doors open and smoke the whole place out so that you and Lucas can go take the nightshade to Hugo. Hugo's the name of your brother, not Marcus. I don't know why I thought it was Marcus. Anyway, the douchebag alchemist king, or whatever he is, he's like, we need to take him to like a safe place, one of our safe like alchemical places, so that he can just die. Because the more he's in pain and the more he struggles after he's reached like the first ascension or whatever. It's not ascension. What is it? The first. Anyway, whatever happened in the first game, once he gets to that point, it's like too late. Like he is going to die. And as he dies, everything is going to come down with him. And Amicia is super hot about it, and her mom's like, "Calm the fuck down, girl." And Lucas is like, "Yeah, girl, calm down." And she's like, "What about the island? The island from his dreams? I saw a picture of it in your study." And the guy's like, "Psh, whatevs," and he pieces the fuck out. So Amicia is super mad. She sends Lucas to go find out more information, and then they get the task. Lucas gets the task of going to tell Joseph, who has a boat, who's going to take you guys, the whole crew, to Marseille, I think. And Marseille has a safe house for the alchemists where they can like lock Hugo up so that the rats stop coming and they can avoid the catastrophe. So that's the game plan. And then Lucas is like, "Amicia, come with me because this is how this game works, so you better come with me." And she's like, "All right, fine." And I'm like, "Bro, going through that developmental phase and becoming an adolescence, it's very hormonal. I get it." No lie, I just learned about this. Yeah, that's right. I just learned about puberty. No, in my like class where I'm studying to be like a medical psychologist or whatever, so I can prescribe medication. We just went over this whole area about puberty and pubescence and adolescence and all this crap. And so it's funny that I'm playing this game, and so what's on my mind is, man, she's definitely going through. She's definitely on the rag, fellas. Probably for the first time. I don't know. That might have came up in the first game too. This game is not woke per se, but it's very French, so they have no qualms discussing such things. So I can't remember if it came up before, but there was some discussion about her having her first blood. I'm almost positive in the first game. That, or again, I've just spent like a week learning about this thing that I already knew about, but it's been on my mind. So, but while I'm playing it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, she's like a teenager. She's a hormonal teenager who's going through that beautiful life change where she goes from being a child to a woman. So, of course, she's super hot and just wants to kill dudes because she's so angry. And I'm like, oh, this game is so well written, whether intentional or not. It's excellent. But Lucas convinces her to come, and he also convinces her not to kill anybody, / me, the player. And you really have like one opportunity to kill anybody at this point, where we're on the docks trying to find Joseph. Well, I haven't finished the docks, but the docks level is now chapter 4, which is called the Guardian. I don't know. I haven't really brought this up before, so I don't know if it's relevant. But she's the Guardian, so maybe. We also learned that we can get to these workbenches, but we got to use knife. We got to break a knife to open them up, and that they always have tools and crap in them. I was able to upgrade my skills without crashing the game because I was super quick. I like open it up, look at all the options, close it, think about it, go back in, quickly choose the one I want, and I've avoided crashing since then. So that's good. So clearly you just can't be sitting there thinking about it. You got to like make a decision and go. I also avoid pulling up the menu, except I glanced at it for a second. So that was interesting. So we're traveling to the docks. There's some guards. They're hauling stuff out. We're trying to get by them. I was able to sneaky potamus past the first group. And then the second group's like pushing a cart through tar, and they're having a real hard time, and it's night. So obviously the rats are going to come. And they do. And we get a new thing we can do. We can light the tar on fire on the ground, which is like gasoline, right? Because tar is like very flammable because of the gases. And so it like boom after the guards we don't kill the guards. The guards get killed by the rats, even though they have torches, which I don't. So we burn it up so we can get around and we can push a cart around, and we're able to like work our way down through the docks, and then we enter a building, which is like a tar factory. It's not a factory, but a tar building making place, and that's where we're up to at this point. So we pick up at the tar factory here, and the tar's fun. We get it as an item we can use that makes fire. Like we can throw a pot down and it creates tar, and then we throw fire on the tire, on the fire, and it like makes like a long-lasting fire spot, which we could already kind of do with the pots, just using a fire pot. So I think it lasts longer. But in future little open arena areas, I would just use a fire pot because it was faster. As I was trying to skirch my way through stuff. Anyway, so while we're working our way through the factory, we bump into one of the soldiers, and the soldier's like, "Hey, I got stuck here forever. Can you help?" And you're like, "Yeah, we can help, but you got to help us." And he's like, "Cool." And so there's a lot of puzzle solving at this point. You gotta like move. You gotta have like Lucas move this thing there, and then you move this thing there, and then you like light some tar on fire, and then you go back and forth, and then the guard like lifts up a boat thingy, and eventually you get through this like gauntlet of stuff, and then you gotta help Lucas by throwing some tar into a fire. So you learn that when you have a fire and you throw tar in it, it makes it super tarry or super fiery, and then you get to the end, and the guy's like, "Haha! Now I know who you are. I'm gonna imprison you," and you use tar on his thing, on his torch, because there's the rats are everywhere, right? And he's like, "Oh no, I can't see!" And then you run, and Amicia swears to God for the 45th time that she's never gonna trust anyone again but herself and Hugo, the monster who controls all the rats. But that no one else can be trusted, so there will be no trust garnered at this juncture. They finally are able to meet Joseph, who is arguing with the guard about why he's out and about doing bullshit. And he's like, "Fuck you, I'm leaving." And the guy's like, "No, you're under arrest because you know too much." And he's like, "How about you go fuck yourself?" And he shoots him with a crossbow that he has on his boat. The crossbow that you will eventually get per the game asking me in the DLC that I torrented. What crossbow I'd like to use in the game. And that it is unlocked in episode 5. So I was like, "Oh, okay, that's the crossbow I'm going to get. Sweet." Cool. At that point, he takes off. And then you're like, "No, wait, we're sent by Master Asshole Guy. And he wants you to take us to Marseille or whatever." And he's like, No, I'm good. I'm just getting the fuck out of Dodge, for this place is completely destroyed," which it is later, by the way. Just like Guyana. And you're like, "But we have a child." And he's like, and I'm like, "You're both children. Why would he give a fuck?" And he's like, all right. Meet me at the next pilot. I'll pick you guys up." And I was like, "For Rizzle?" Like, Amicia is like maybe 14, and Lucas is like 12, maybe 14. Like, they are children. Anyway, guess not child enough. Maybe this guy's got a fetish. I don't know. It never comes up because eventually he gets killed. Spoiler alert, I guess. So there's more puzzle solving / moving around, and he helps. He like fires crossbow bolts at guards just periodically and kills them. So I decided, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hug the river and just let him take care of most of this stuff, which he does. I had to interfere with some guards, and then eventually you get to like a castle wall, the city wall. And once you get through there, I think... I'm trying not to mix up what was going on. Okay, so you got to that part, and then you move through there. Oh yeah, I think at that point you're just like, you kind of go through the wall, and there he is. And he's like, "All right, cool." And you're like, "All right, Lucas, you stay here and make sure it doesn't go anywhere, and I'm going to go get my brother and my mommy and that asshole, and we're going to..." And then they the whole time they're arguing about going to this island and the island thing, and Lucas like apologizes for taking mommy's side. And he's like, your mommy is my master. She's like my meister or whatever. So I'm sorry, I just, something. And Amicia's like, "At some point, you're going to have to decide if you're with us or you're with my mommy." And he's, no one says mommy. Sorry. It's been a long day at work. So he's like, "Oh, Amicia, but we're friendsies." Anyway. So Amicia starts heading back, and she's like, "All right, I'm just going to go back, even though there's a curfew, and there's going to be no problems, and get everybody, and then we're just going to wander back over here with no problems." And the rats immediately start blowing up everything, and she's like, "That motherfucker, he's doing something." And that asshole, that bitch of a mom, my mommy, that bitch... They're doing something. They're causing him to act up because he needs to stay calm. Because when he's calm, he's got rat powers. But when he's upset, the rats go crazy. And so then we have like a temple run. This is like the second or third one. Temple run experience. This one's super long. It's fun. You just like run away from the rats, and run away from the rats, and run away from rats, and finally you're like up on the roof, running away from rats, and things are caving in and exploding, and people are like, "What's going on?" You're like, "Go back into your house or run away!" And the whole town is like getting destroyed by these rats. And then finally you get home to your mummy and your brother Hugo, and you're like, "Hugo, stop!" And he's like, "What?" And then everything calms down. And your mummy's like, thank you. And at no point did I remember hearing anyone say anything about the other guy, but he's dead because it's brought up later when they go to the boat with Joseph, and they're like, and he's like, wait, wasn't there another guy? And Amicia's like, oh yeah, he didn't make it. And the guy's like, I don't give a fuck. But you have a nice what is it? You have a nice little walking simulator portion of the game where you're just holding Hugo, and your mummy's like, hey, let me carry him. And you're like, go fuck yourself, you bitch. You're trying to take him to Marseille. I want to take him to this mystical island that may or may not exist with a phoenix where he's going to get cured. And she's like, that doesn't exist. It's not real. And you're like, whatever, mummy. And she's like, let's just go to Marseille and we can talk about it there. And she's like, I don't trust you and you don't trust me. And I was like, man, this got like real heated real fast. Like, you spent like the whole first game looking for mummy, and then all of a sudden you're like, fuck you, mom. Anyway, so they have a nice, it's not nice. They have a conversation on the very simple walk to the boat with the whole city destroyed, and Hugo keeps being like, hey, how'd the whole city get destroyed? And you're like, don't worry about it. And he's like, did I do this? And you're like, shh, don't look, just don't worry about it. He's like, I did do it. And then mummy's like, calm down, Hugo. It's like a living nuclear weapon. You're like, no, don't get too hot, because then we'll all die. Just shh, we're good, chill. So you get to the boat, and then you get on the boat, and it's off to Marseille, and then we start episode 5. And then episode 5 is fun. It's mostly puzzles. So the boat gets stuck on a chain. So you and Lucas hop off, and you start looking around this like valley with a river, and eventually you come across the mice again, of course, and they're out and about. And it's like, Hugo, the fuck? And he's like, I didn't do it. What? I didn't do anything. What? It wasn't me. And it's like, well, someone's doing something. So that was confusing, because I thought he had it kind of under control. But then the rats are around, so then there's some puzzle solving with that. You use your tar, there's like hay bales. You and Lucas go back and forth. You're like tossing torches across chasms and lighting braziers and lighting the hay and moving cranks. And it was pretty good. It was very fun. It was a very fun puzzle solving. This whole section was a lot of puzzle solving, and it was not frustrating at all. These people do a pretty good job. There was one moment where I was like, the fuck am I supposed to do? And then the game tells you if you like wait too long. Amicia's like, well, she's like, I know what I need to do this. And I'm like, thank you, Amicia. Because I thought the game was asking me to like do something with Lucas, because he's like, I'll help. And then I was like, all right, how do I get this guy to help me? And then nope, that was the wrong answer. He will not help you. You need to figure it out. You need to do it yourself. Anyway, so eventually I get all the way around to like doing the chain, and it's like, oh fuck, the chain is connected to a ferry that's having issues. The issues are there's a dead body in the way, so Amicia has to go down a hole into like the dirty water with all the dead bodies and like move the dead body out of the way, and then she can take the ferry across, and then she can destroy the entire like other side to release the chain. And then there's some more puzzle solving, just kind of moving blocks around and doing other fun stuff that I really enjoyed. It reminds me a lot of like old school Tomb Raider, to be completely honest. And then it's like the whole time people are like, what the fuck's Lucas? He was supposed to be right here. And eventually, of course, by the time you get to the boat, Lucas is he's got grabbed up by some soldiers. So then you hop on the crossbow and kill him. And then you have to help Lucas by using fire on the crossbow to like make room for the rats to like move out of the fucking way. That was fun. Now you get to the part that I hated the most out of this entire game thus far. It's a part where you're on the boat, and I'm glad I'm playing. I think I'm playing on the easiest difficulty. I might just be playing whatever default setting, but I could see a world where this is not just annoying, but fucking infuriating, because you just have like guys from all like 360 degrees in this like river you're going down, firing arrows at you, and you gotta like circle around and kill them. But if you don't kill them, whatever. But they keep firing at you, and it was like I was like, God damn, this is so annoying. And you have unlimited shots, but still, it was like fuck. And eventually there's a guy, I can't remember what his name is, but he's the guy who was wearing like the full armor who threw you in jail in the first place, and he's back, and he's an asshole. But you crash into like the shore after Joseph gets killed by one of these arrow shots, because obviously there's no possible way for you to do this. And you go up there and you're having a PMS moment again, so it must be 28 days later or whatever. Where you're just like, fuck you, ah, bah, 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 and you're like killing everybody and killing, and then eventually you bump into the full armored guy, and he's like, what are you gonna do? I got full armor. And it's like, damn, he's right. Like, even with my crossbow, I can't kill someone with full armor. So you just run away. So you get another temple run. portion, and then you have like another part where you got to like dodge around guys, and I literally just ran into them because you get a chance to like counterattack, especially on, I'm supposing I'm on easy mode, so I counterattack both of them to make them like dizzy, and then I just like ran for it and I got through, and at that point the guy like snags you up with the full armor, and he's like punching you while you're on the ground. And then Hugo's like, no! And he jumps off. And the guy in the armor is like, oh, the fuck are you going to do? And I was like, oh, sweet summer child. Hugo summons rats, bro, motherfucker. So he does. And then he rescues Amicia, and then him and Amicia hug it out. And then the mommy and Lucas are on the boat. And the boat starts to like move again. Because Amicia was, oh, that's right. The main reason she got off the boat was because they threw like grappling hooks onto it, and so she went to like cut the ropes with like a smooth rock. But I guess like the smooth rock did enough damage that eventually the river just pulled, like, you know, water eventually like carved away the ropes to break off the grappling hooks or whatever. So they start floating away, and Mommy is like, no, Amicia, Hugo, and both you and Hugo give her like the dirtiest look. Like, fuck you, bitch. We're going to our motherfucking island. It was so good. Even with Amicia's questionable, like, child, 14-year-old girl's jawline, I was like, you get him, queen, slay. Fuck her. She's like, no, my children. I need to use you for things, I guess. But Amicia and Hugo were like, fuck that bitch. And we're going to go, and then Amicia's like, let's go find our island. We're going to go out to sea. And Hugo's like, yeah. And that's the end of part 5. And then part 6 starts, and I wanted to stop, but there's like always story at the beginning and ending of these parts. So I wanted to pause, right? So we'll talk about it now, so don't forget about it. And so you guys you're taking a little walksy. Like, Amicia has like a cut on her head, and they're sitting by, and and Hugo's being weird about plants again, like he loves plants so much, and he's like talking about some fucking tea leaf by the river, and he's like, oh, Amicia, your head's still cut, and so he makes her like a little bandage, and she's like, oh, you're the best brother, I love you forever, and he's like, I love you too, Amicia, and like, let's go find your island, yeah, and that's where we leave off here. So now we have like a nice little peaceful journey through a field of flowers, and we look at some feathers, and Amicia and Hugo are just really enjoying being back together and having a good time. Now, I want to note that the videos for this in the previous section are pretty fucked up, because I guess I was recording in 4K or something, and then it was like not rendering correctly, or it was taking too long to render, and it was messing up. And then this section, when I made the correction back to 1080p, essentially, or whatever it is, the resolution is kind of wonky. Not the 1080p or whatever I'm using, but the recording on OBS stayed large for some reason. It didn't like self-correct, and so it's going to look super smashed up in your face, which is not how it looked when I played it. Okay, those notes out of the way. Moving on. So that goes well for them for a few seconds, of course. And then they stumble upon this encampment with pilgrims going to Rome because it's the Jubilee next year. And they, it's like nice and pleasant. It's one of these like, oh, this is nice. Maybe things will turn out okay. And then the whole time I'm like, oh man, are they going to be vampires? Because nothing can ever be nice for these two whippersnappers. They're just going to get fucked. But they meander around, and someone's like, oh, hey, you should go talk to the leader. And then I found like a swing, and I had like, you can find these like secret story moments, which I'm okay with that. Not that important, but it's kind of interesting that they're like hidden away. I don't know. I kind of feel like I might like it more, because it's like, if you just want to kind of plow through the game, then you don't have to worry about it. But they're there if you want to kind of like look around. I feel like I get caught off sometimes when trying to find secrets, and I end up going the way I'm supposed to go to get through the game, and then I get locked out of like searching. So, if anything, that's the worst part about this whole situation in this game. But the swinging was nice. Oh, Amicia is still like really banged up in the head, even though Hugo put like a little band-aid on it. So they find the leader, and they're in like camp. They're praying and chanting and whatnot. And then they introduce themselves, and he's like, "Oh, I have a map. I might know where this island is. Something, something." And then the Beast, who's the guy in all the body armor, shows up with like the Provence soldiers, and they're like, we're looking for a little girl and a boy, and they murdered a bunch of my men. And the guy's like, you're a murderer? And you're like, yes. And the guy's like, well, you should repent. But I'm not going to turn over a child to this clearly lunatic. So let's go. So he leads you out of the encampment with the pilgrims, and you end up in like, they see you and they chase after you, and you end up in a quarry. And then we learn that Hugo can control rats, which we knew from the first game. But now he can actively do it because he's actually hanging out with you, and it's not Lucas, who is kind of worthless. He had that one ability where he could like throw stuff into the fire, but I never used it. This rat thing is a lot more useful. So you get some practice with that. Amicia is like having a real difficult time. She keeps like kind of passing out or falling, and then it gives us an excuse to like practice with Hugo and doing rat stuff. We get through another puzzle area, and then we get some more open areas where we have to like sneak on through, and then we enter a church. And oh wait, is the church where Hugo does his stuff? No. Okay, so we start off, and at first we're in the quarry, and Hugo's like, the rats can sense blood, and so I can eagle vision like in Assassin's Creed and see where people are at. Like, cool. So we get through a couple of those spots, and then we go to an open world part where it's like outside, and we have to like run and get through and sneak. And the sneaking in this game is still kind of like really hard to do. Like, I'm really trying not to kill people and just to sneak to areas, and it's like the game, it's like you have to like immaculately plan like your maneuvers to get through those areas. So it's like really wants you to kill people so bad. We make it through, we get to the church, and that's where we learn that we can now control rats. We can make them go someplace to eat or attack people or do whatever fun thing we want them to do. So we do that a little bit, and then we get out of the church, and then Amicia like passes out again, and we're like out in the open, and these Provence soldiers start attacking, and so Hugo has to use rats to like fight them all off. And then Hugo passes out, and the rats like come in their giant flood thing they like to do, and Amicia has to pick him up and run away, and we run, and eventually we get to like the top of this like quarry area, and then she's like bleeding all over her face from like this prior wound, and she passes out. And Hugo's like, no, and then she wakes up, and our friend Arnold's there. Remember Arnold? I never brought him up because I forgot. I was like, who the fuck's this guy? And why does she know him? And so, okay. So at first I was like, is he the beast? Oh, no. Oh, at some point before you do that part where the flood and everything, you fight the beast. And he's in full armor. So you got to like, there's like a fire in the middle of the arena. So you got to get him to like the middle. Then you throw tar in that so it distracts him. And then you get your crossbow out. And you go behind him and you shoot him in the back twice. And that kills him. And you kill a couple of random guys. And that's like, after that you enter the place where Amicia passes out and the rats and all that stuff. Okay. So I was like, I thought I killed that guy. But no, that's the beast. I literally had to fucking look this up. And I'm glad. It's one of those things where it's like, I know I'm stupid and I don't pay attention to things like I should. I can't remember names. But I was like, this guy looks vaguely familiar, but I thought that's the guy I killed. And then I looked it up, and it wasn't just me. There was plenty of people who were like, who the fuck is this guy? Like on Steam and Reddit and other places. And I was like, okay, good, it's not me. But he's the mercenary leader all the way back. And it's because he was wearing a fucking helmet before. Now he's not. And I'm like, okay, the body looks familiar. But when Misa got thrown in jail, and then she escaped using that, like, Sabaccio or whatever, that's the guy who, like, he was a mercenary who was, and now he's like, him and the army of Provence are, like, at odds, and his men, like, abandoned him. He has this whole sob story. And so he's like, fuck it, I don't know what else to do with my life. And then he finds like Hugo and Amicia while he's trying to escape the rats. And he's like, oh shit, that's the kid who controls the rats. I'm going to go with them. So he rescues Amicia, takes care of her so that she recovers and protects Hugo. Well, and the sort of like time passes, an unbeknownst amount of time, but you're enough where Amicia's not bleeding out of her head wound. He like treats it and stuff. And so we keep seeing her like black out and then come to, and we see Arnold and Hugo's like, hey, it's my buddy. We're super homies now. And Amicia's like, no, don't trust him. I'm passing out again. And a few days go by, or time goes by. And eventually she wakes up, and Arnold tells a sob story, and she's like, all right, well, I guess for now, because Hugo. And you're like, Hugo, we shouldn't trust this guy. And he's like, no, he's our friend. And the guy's like, I know how to get to your fucking island you're trying to get to. Hugo told me the whole thing. And she's like, no, Hugo, why? And then, but he's like, yeah, I know, we got to go find my pirate friend. And then Amicia's like, you outlaws. And he's like, pot calling the kettle black, biatch. And I'm like, true. And Amicia somewhat admits, she's like, all right, I guess that's fair. So they're going to go find like some pirate queen or something named Sophia. But first we got to like get there. So
we start traveling. We find the beach. We're hanging out on the beach. There's like some fun adventure. They find like some seagulls. Arnold tells like a funny French story, and he talks about how he's also from Gagne, or whatever it's called, where they were from, and he was a knight back in the day, and then he's a mercenary now. He's an outlaw, and his shield and shit. And so they have like a nice little chat, and then we get more control on the rats, and then we enter like we have to like go through this dungeon essentially, and there's tons of rats and some more puzzles, and that's fun. We can use our crossbow, like we can shoot the fire onto the shield, and then use Arnold as like a movable fiery thing, and eventually we find the rat nest, and Arnold is like not pleased with this, and no one's pleased with it. But then he falls down into like a pit, and we save him, and then we get like our new next ability, which I can't remember what it's called. It's like Oxnia or something, but you make it using crystals, and it draws the rats to you because it's part of like their nest situation. So once we were able to create that, we're able to have more things we can do to solve puzzles. And I got myself kind of fucked over here because I thought I was doing the right thing, and then I got stuck, and then I had to like die so I could like reset the loop. But anyway, you like draw the rats out, and then the guy is able to like move and do this thing, and then he's able to move, and you rescue him, and then you can use his shield, like I said, as like a movable brazier, and you guys push out, and you end up at another beach, and you're like, oh, safe from those stupid fucking rats. And he's like, hey, see that boat over there? That's it. We guys got to go right past that, and we'll be good to go. And that's where we wrapped up for this session.
So now we gotta find Sophia, and she's behind like this wrecked boat on the other side of this river, and there's a lot of rats there. So we enter an open world area with there's just 3 guards, and I find out that if I mess up and the guards notice me and they come to attack me, that Arno will murder them. and I was pleasantly surprised by that. So we get through this area, we have to like light some stuff and tell the rats to move away, and then Arno honestly killed 2 of the guys, and the other one I like threw fire dousing powder on so that he could be eaten by rats, which was good stuff. So we get through there, and then we enter Sophia's chamber. So Sophia is like a pirate captain queen lady, and she's got 2 guys, and Arnold's like, we need you and your crew to take us to whatever the name of the island is, I forget. And no questions asked. And she's like, nah, I'm hanging it up. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm releasing my crew, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, all right, well, if you're releasing your crew, just you come with us. And she's like, all right, that sounds fine. And I was like, wow, that was very easy. They also comment about the scar on Amicia's face. And she's like, oh, looks like you did that. And he's like, you bet I did. But, now we're friends. And Sophia's, one of her comments is like, all right, well, we can all be friends and we can travel together without my crew for some odd reason. But if I ever see you hurt her again, I will kill you or something. And he's like, yeah, we're all friends now. Don't worry about it. And Amicia's like, I like the cut of your jib. And Hugo's like, hooray, pirate adventure. Yay. So you guys wander off because she doesn't have her pirate ship. What happened to her pirate ship? The guards put it in dry dock, like in that little village that's like a short walk away over there. So you're going to help her get it back and push it out to sea so that you guys can go on your pirate adventure. She says something funny. It's like, the sea life for me. And then, so you guys leave, and then we get like a short little encounter with her talking to her crew. And she's like, all right, fellas, you know the drill. I'm hanging it up. So good luck with everything, and it's been a pleasure. And one of them's like, oh, yeah, you're hanging it up. All right, cool. We'll see you in a couple weeks. And she's like, no, this is it. I'm hanging it up forever for now. And they're like, sure. We'll be here whenever you get back, just playing dice or some bullshit. And everyone laughs. And then I was like, that was interesting. It was good, I guess, because it gives us like some establishment of her character as being kind of like flaky about stuff, which is good. We also get some dialogue between Amicia and Arnold about his relationship with Sophia and stuff, and how she owes him because he saved her life or something. The game is like, I would, at this point, and I'll bring this up later as well, but I would not advise playing this on a PC because, as I mentioned, it stutters, and and it affects the vocals more than anything else. But sometimes the screen kind of stutters. You'll probably notice it in some of these like screen caps that are playing in the background while I'm talking about it. Is sometimes, and it's not even like my bad OBS not finishing like encoding or any of that stuff. Like sometimes it's just like going and it kind of like slows down a bit. Like what you're seeing is that's not the recording right now. For example, like this recorded fine. It just recorded what I was playing through. Thank goodness it's not like an intensely action-oriented game because it would be unplayable. So I'm still going to enjoy this somewhat, but if you like want the full experience, I definitely play it on like the Xbox or PlayStation or Nintendo Switch. I don't know, maybe I don't know if it's on there because its PC port is just not good. Maybe there's a mod for it somewhere. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting kind of like far into this game. I'm not going to like restart the whole thing. Anyway. So we find like some old French ruins or old French handprints in a cave, and we talk about that, and then we learn that Sophia and Arnold like they work together, and then they get tired of each other, and they hate each other, and then they work together, and there's like this. Again, it's kind of just like flaky, and they're like outlaw-ish mercenaries, so they're just kind of like ADHD all over the place about stuff. So you get to the next open area, which is like this town, and there's a lot of. The game essentially is like, hey, now the whole game is a tutorial. So the tutorial in this open world area is that thing Arnold did by accident before. Yeah, that is like the main point of how you're going to get through most of this stuff is you're going to have him just attack people. But be forewarned, at some point, there's two guys talking, and it's like, hey, by the way, before you send him out there, if he's overwhelmed, he will die. He can't. This is not just like an unstoppable thing. So you got to like help out or like move people around or do whatever. Arnold does a fine job of killing everything. Like at some point, I ran into one of these guys with like the full armor and like the helmet and the like a ball and chain with like a fire in it, and he killed that guy just as easily as he killed the guy with like just the crossbow. So it's more about don't let too many people get involved. Or he's going to be in trouble. Which it never was. I was able to, with his help, we moved through this pretty easily. There wasn't a lot of rats in this section, to be honest. The rats tend to be the more puzzly aspect, which is more interesting. The stealth section tends to be like, just run, kind of get through. I mean, again, I'm pretty sure I'm playing on like an easy difficulty. It's probably more difficult if you're not. You have to be more careful and like judged or whatever. But we get through there and get to the boat. And then we got some boat action, and the boat action's pretty interesting. It's like it gets more puzzly. We have to like move rats around, and it's another issue where it's like they pull the anchor up. The anchor's caught on something. Fuck. All right, Amicia's gonna go solve this problem now. So we got to go pull that up and break this chain and release the block, and then now we can go pull the anchor up. And then it's like, all right, cool. Let's drop the mast or the mainsail. And they tied the sail up, motherfuckers. So then Amicia's got to go to the other pylon. They keep calling the docks pylons for some reason. Maybe that's what they're actually called. I don't know. So then you go over to that and you break the chain you break the lock that's holding the rope around the sail so that it drops, and then that's the end of chapter 6. So yeah, this video is just pretty much chapter 6. Good stuff. I enjoyed it. Sophia's an interesting character. At some point you're like, oh my fucking head, I'm so tired. I need a break. And Arnold, but that's like you're at the boat essentially. Now you just gotta wait for Sophia. And Arnold's like, I'm gonna take. And Hugo's like, oh, I want to go play on the boat. And Arnold's like, I got him. You just stay here and rest in this like little house. We'll be fine. And while you're resting, all of a sudden you hear like a banging on the door, and it's like, help, help. And you go to like open the door, but when you open the door, Sophia stumbles in, and she's being chased by a guard, who then starts like murdering her, and then you murder him instead. And then she's like, awesome, I owe you one. And I hate that, but it's good to know that you got my back, girl. And that happens right before the boat puzzle, and then you guys set out to sea, and that's where we leave off our crew. Is they're sailing, and you're taking like a little breaksea. So now Amicia's on a boat with her homies, Arnold, Sasha. I'm really bad with names. Why don't I pay attention when people say people's names? And Hugo. I'm going to go with Sasha for now. I could be wrong. So this portion of the game, you just kind of go around and chit-chat and character build. In fact, almost this entire playthrough was exceedingly walking simulator. I mean, that's all it was. There was no rats. There was like one moment of like maybe combat stress, and then another moment of sneaky time, which is chapters 8, and I think I'm currently still in chapter 9 at this point through this. So what do we get here? We chit chat, and people like look at stuff and they talk to each other and they like jibber jabber, and it's all pleasant. And then we finally get to the island that I forgot the name of. And as soon as they get on there, Hugo gets like a wreath of flowers on his head, and this creepy cult-like lady is like, "We love the children," and then she like wanders off, and I was like, that's not creepy at all. And then, but Amicia, Hugo, and Arnold don't seem creeped out. They're like, "Oh, this is nice," and I'm like, is it though? There's something. I mean, I played 2 of these games, and like, you obviously can't have nice things, Amicia. You should just understand that by now. Like, if something seems nice, it's clearly insane. Or it's going to be ruined by you, most likely. Or Hugo, more like. So we wander around. We talk to some merchants at the marketplace, and some people who were putting together like this festival of the child or whatever. The Bright Child or something. And we just learned that there's this festival, and they're celebrating this boy that's left and is supposed to come back to be with the mother and the father so that they can be happy and rule in peace and love and shit. And that you keep seeing this imagery of like a boy with a wreath, flower hat, and a bird, like the phoenix that we saw from Hugo's dream. And Hugo points this out, and Amicia also comments on it. So we go through here, and we're asking around for like images from Hugo's dream. But it's very vague. It's like, oh, there's like a lake kind of by a beach, and there's a tree next to the lake. Is there anything like that here? And people are there like, I'm not from here, so I don't know. Or like, I mean, yeah, like all over the place, which is, everyone's very, very unhelpful. But eventually we follow the parade, and we see singing and chanting and dancing, and it's all very pleasant and fun. And then we get to like the main stage, and there's the Count Orleans, and he's chit-chatting with his guards, and then he's like, "Hey, where's the mother?" And someone's like, "Oh, she's gonna be a minute." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then Arnold's like, "Hey, this is it. It's time, Hugo. Use your rats." And he grabs Hugo and starts moving. And Amicia's like, "The fuck?" And he's like, "Hugo promised me if I helped you that he would use his rats to kill this motherfucker." And it's like, "That guy? That's the guy you want to kill?" And he's like, "Yeah, fuck that guy. He broke my shield and shit." And Amicia's like, "Go fuck yourself. We're not doing that." And he's like, "No, I'm gonna do it myself then." And then he runs up to start fighting with the Count, and he fights with him for a very long, like an impressively long time, because sword fights are usually over very quickly because you have fucking swords, and so someone eventually just gets a little tired and gets stabbed and dies. But we run away, and this is like the one action part of this entire section. So we just do like a little, but it's a little. Oh, there's one more part after this. So we do like a little teeny runsy bit, and then we end up in like a stable with goats. Oh, and there's a whole thing with like a goat, and it like creeps Hugo out because it like bleats at him or something. It's poetious. So we get through the stable with like a very easy puzzle, and then there's like a falconer, and we learn that like the falconers, they will use their falcons or hawks or whatever to instantly kill you if they catch you. So we have to like distract the hawk by like throwing rocks other places so it goes that way, and then we run from like hiding spot to hiding spot, and eventually we get like a thumbs up, mission accomplished, to be like, and we're done. And once we get through that, we just stumble upon Arnold and the Count of Orleans doing like a sword fight. And then there's like 2 guards with the Count of Orleans just like standing around, just like, whatever, they'll figure it out. And Hugo is very distraught. He's like, "Quick, Amicia, we must do something about this very timid like sword fight that's going on for the last like 15 minutes of game time." And Amicia's like, "I know what to do." And you drop like a bar on Arnold, and you're like, "That's right, motherfucker." And then the Count is like, "Oh, very good. Guards, kill these children." Luckily for us, the mother / the Countess of Orleans is like, "Sweetie, please don't kill children. You're being ridiculous." And he's like, "All right, maybe you're right. And then she's like, come with us, children. We'll take you to our exceedingly fine manor. And it is exceedingly fine. Like, this is like medieval France, bro. And you're in the middle of an island on like in like the middle. You're in an island in the middle of the Mediterranean, and this like beautifully crafted, extremely large estate with like frescoed floors and a dining room that's like the size of like an elementary school with all this food. I'm like, the fuck. This guy, this is like beyond like I have lots of money. It's like you are like a medieval king. Like you're a count. Like there's like dukes and then like vice counts and then counts. Like you're not even that high up in like the hierarchy. How do you have so much fucking money to like craft this like ridiculous palace that you live in? Anyway, we get some rooms for the night and some new clothes, which is nice because Amicia's been stinking it up with her like dirty old ragamuffin clothes. And we talk to the mother, who's the countess, who keeps referring to herself as the mother. And we go and we like pray with her in front of a statue of like the boy with the phoenix. And then we hear some, it's like a lot of like, this is not going to go well for anybody. And then they have like this whole soliloquy hit between the two of them to us about the boy left and someday he'll return to the mother and father and peace and shit. And it's like, oh man, they're totally going to nab up Hugo, aren't they? Doesn't happen right away though. So then we do some more, what did I call this fucking thing? Walking simulator game. The next morning, we just kind of walk around even more of their extremely large estate before we finally are like let out. And there's Sasha, and she's like, hey, what's up? And you're like, oh, hey, what's up, girl? And she's like, so you put Arnold in jail? And you're like, yeah, that guy's an asshole. And she's like, that's fair. And then she's like, can I tag along with you guys? And Amicia's like, yeah, you're cool. And so it's like, man, this is like the best Dungeons and Dragons adventure team I've ever been a part of. Everyone's just like, that motherfucker? Whatever. Lord. So then we find a statue of the Phoenix, and it's looking a certain direction. And so we make the assumption that like we just got to follow where it looks, which is a good assumption. Because eventually that leads us to this old ruined amphitheater that we set all the grass on fire, and no one seems to care about that. And underneath is like a map. And then the map, it's like, oh, hey, look, there's the mountains over there. Maybe we need to go up there. And then Amicia's like, hey, isn't there, it looks like there's a house up there. And then Sasha, who knows everything about this island, clearly, is like, oh, yeah, that's the refuge or the sanctuary or some shit. And they're like, oh, good, the boy sanctuary from this religion we just found out about? And everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's probably where we need to go. So then we head up there and we get like a break because you're like, man, that's a pretty fucking far away to be like walking simulator the whole way. Are we going to fight rats? And no, we just get to a gate and they're like, all right, let's head up the mountain. And then it's like, time has passed. And now you're almost there. And then, there's like some scene next to like a spring water. And then you meet a guy with some goats and he's like, hey, can you rescue my goat? And I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to rescue a goat. And it was more complicated than I thought because the fucking game didn't do what it was supposed to do the first time I did it. Like there was some like tall grass and I was like, oh, this game taught me how to like light tall grass on fire like 5 seconds ago. That's probably how I do this puzzle. And so I threw some fire into the tall grass and nothing happened. And I was like, okay, well that's not the answer. And then I wandered around and eventually I got a guide online and it was like just like the grass on fire. And I was like, you fucking game. Because then I went back to the grass a second time and then I threw I threw a flame rock in the exact same spot, but this time it turned yellow. And when it turns yellow, it means it'll actually do something. And I was like, fuck you, game. I literally just did this. And then, so I lit the fire. I sent the boy, Hugo, to unlock the door so I get in this little tower where the goat's stuck. I go in there. We like high-five the goat. I take the treasure chest in there as like my real reward. And then I like go to leave. And then Hugo's like, are we just going to leave the goat in there? And I was like, the fucking goat can find its own fucking way home. But I was like, all right, game. I did all this fucking work to rescue this goat. I'm gonna follow through. So then I go back in there and I have to pet the goat again, like for realsy. Instead of just standing by the goat and being like, good job, goat, you can free to go. I have to go back and like click the Y button so that Amici and Hugo like actually pet the goat. And then they're like, all right, it'll find its way. And then we head off. And I was like, fuck you, game. What the fuck? Anyway. It was fine. I'm glad I did it. So then we get to the next part, and then we learn that Sasha has a secret power. And much like Arnold, whose secret power is just to, like, murder people, Sasha has a power where she can, like, do a little smoke bomb, like a very, very, very little smoke bomb that lasts very shortly in tall grass. And then if she uses it, guards will get distracted very shortly, and then I can go past them. So I'd use that a couple times in this new arena to like sneak into the actual sanctuary, and that's where we got to in this section. So Amicia, Sophia, and Hugo enter the sanctuary, but they're not in the inner courtyard or the inner part. This sanctuary is huge, so we got past like the first hurdle. Now we have a pretty big open area that we gotta kind of work our way through by again avoiding guards. It's all stealth. By avoiding guards, by moving around, we can like throw rocks at like piles of armor that are stationed periodically to make noise to distract them. We can use Sophia's fire like trick on the grass, her mirror or whatever that like can start like a tiny little bit of a fire on dry grass, which is also plentiful to distract them. And so we eventually work our way past all the guards into like the next part. And then there's another like area that we got to do some sneaky sneak. And we eventually get to this tower, and the whole time everyone's like chit-chatting, and then we hear like some stuff going on with, like the guards are kind of mumbling about like the ceremony and kicking people out, and then we kind of hear the Duke or the Count, I think, yeah, he's the Count. The Count and the Countess like talking about like, you know, very culty like situation about like bring the children to the mother and the healing fire and all that crap. So we eventually work our way up to like right by the entrance, and then we see so there's like the Countess and the Count, and they're dressed in like all red and they're like ready to go, and then there's like several adults with children who are wearing like complete red robes that are covering the head, and then like these metal masks, right? And so Amicia's like, oh, we should do that. So we like sneak into the tent where the people are getting changed, and Amicia and Hugo change into their thing, and then Sophia also changes, which I know I've called her Sasha, but I'm pretty sure it's Sophia after playing the game a little bit more. So then we go in and we get Super Walking Simulator, which most of this island has been like, since we've gotten to this island at the beginning of Chapter 9, which this whole thing's like Chapter 9, I think. It's been like walking simulator and like a tiny bit of stealth. Because a couple times I like alerted the guards, and it just gives you like the game over screen. There's no fighting them. There's no trying to run away. It's like if you alert them, and not like, you know, they might be like, hey, what's over there? But like if you alert them, there's no running and hiding. You're really just like game over. So then we get a lot of the kind of like culty plot. So we follow very slowly the procession into like this temple to this child, and there's like a lot of phoenix symbology, and we see a lot of the alchemist symbol, like the 3 circles that are like up and then kind of angled downwards that are connected by a line. And at one point we even get like the phoenix with the symbol in the phoenix. And so the story goes, there was a boy who was born with a light, and he like was very good, and everything was great, and everyone was victory, and he hung out with the mother, and that was great too. And then at some point the darkness got jealous or something, and so that it invaded him, and that's like the Immaculum, right? So we actually see frescoes of like a boy, and then he's like, there's like light, and then there's frescoes of like literally what Hugo's going through with like the black veins and all that craziness, and then like rats running around in some frescoes. But we go through, and there's like a whole ceremony, and eventually we get to a point where like the mother / the Countess is like chit-chatting about like the greatness of the boy and how he's going to return and bring the light and cure all the people. And Amicia's like getting tired of all this bullshit, and so she's got like her head down, like, you know, she's doing like the Picard like face palm. And then the Countess is like, you are the most pious, you will lead the procession. And so she gives us a torch, and we walk through like this area into like this church area, like this cathedral, this like chapel area, and then we hand the torch back as part of like this religious ceremony. And this is all done excellently, by the way. Like, I'm kind of joking about it, but it's like a very good story. It's a little drawn out for a video game, but it was like this whole thing's like very interesting, and then it's the whole thing, and then we get to like this other room, and then Amicia because Sophia's like been kind of trailing us, also dressed in one of these costumes, and so she's like, "Hey, there's a door back here. We should go through there." So we kind of like sneak off during like the final part of the ceremony, and head up to like this other room. And in this room, that's where you see like all the frescoes with the rats and everything. And it's like, oh, wait a second, and then you find like the phoenix statue with like the alchemist symbol on there, and you put two and two together, and you're like, oh shit, this was like an alchemist refuge, and there's probably like an actual person that all this stuff's like frescoed of that actually existed. And then these people like found it years later, and we're like, you know what we should do? Cult. We should start a cult. And so they did. But they're totally misreading like the frescoes and all the emphasis and stuff, because this is just like a bunch of alchemists, and alchemists love the symbol of the phoenix because it's like death and rebirth, so it's like an alchemical process of like changing the nature of things, right? If you've ever read like alchemy treatises from like back in the day, that's like a big theme. So anytime you can like transmutate something, it's like the alchemists like are jizzing their pants all about it. So very accurate. And also the misunderstanding of like what is actually happening, which is this like terrible curse that Hugo's under. Like the boy coming back is not going to bring light. In fact, he just brings death to everybody, which we've seen in Innocence and in most of this game thus far. So that's fun. And then we actually we like enter like the big room with like the water and the giant tree in the middle. And you're like, oh shit, this is like from Hugo's dream. And Hugo's like, wow, it's just like my dream. And then you find a bedroom which used to belong to, oh, and there's like a throne. And then behind the throne there's like a bedroom. And the bedroom's like where the boy was living. And then we find the next room over is like where his guardian, who was like a woman warrior, is. We find her armor with like the boobs and stuff. And then we can like look at all the stuff, and there's like more chit-chatting about everything that's going on, and it's all very good. Just a lot of story. Very walking simulator. And so we continue on with this, and eventually we end up in like an alchemical room, and then it's like, oh, well, wait a second. They were clearly doing experiments. And then Hugo gets kind of sad about it, because like, there's no cure in here, and you're like, no, there might be. And you guys look and look and look, and then Sophia finds like a stairway that goes upstairs, and you find like a library, and you know, Hugo's getting kind of distraught about the whole situation, and so Amicia's being a good big sister, and like, nah, bro, we followed your dream, and your dream brought us here, and this is like a real place. So you're like, you're seeing shit, and we're being guided. We just got to keep going. And remember that map, the map that we burnt all that grass all that time ago? Yeah, the map had like a fortress on it too. So maybe that's the next. We need to go there next to like follow the path of getting your cure and all that. And then Hugo's like, well, I never dreamt of a fortress, and Amicia's like, bro, I'm just trying to help you out, man. Maybe you could like shut the fuck up and just like go with it. Like, it's that or just like lay on the ground and die. Come on. So then he's like, oh, okay, you're right. I love you. You're the best. And she's like, I love you too. And so at some point you're like walking around in this area, and then the count and the countess like wander in, and they are by themselves, and they're doing like more prayers and like standing around in the dirty water, and clearly they're having a hard time having kids, because a lot of this is, you know, like it clicked in my head at least at that point, that's like, oh, they're like infertile, and they think like doing all this weird shit is going to give them like a kid, and not just any kid, like the best kid ever who's going to cure everything. And so they're like hooking up in like this dirty water by the tree while we're like sneaking around the edge trying to get to like this sewer exit. And eventually we do, and it's gross. And then we get through the sewer, and then it's like, all right, man, that was fucking weird. We better like change clothes and sneak back into the Count's castle or whatever, just be like wandering around in the countryside and not be up here where we're clearly not supposed to be. And that's the end of chapter 9 and into chapter 10. So this next part, man, there's a few bits about this part. This is like a hard section to get through. This is section, this is like chapter 10. I think I covered the whole thing in this go through. But chapter 10 is all about investigating the two other places besides the refugee camp, what's it called? The sanctuary. So as we leave the sanctuary, we decide, hey, it's a good idea. Let's go. We got to figure out where this round tower is. So we're going to head back to the map. You remember the map, don't you? The map that in the ground of the grass we burned. So we head back over there. On the way, I saw a tower, and I was like, oh, maybe this will have something fun. And there was like a little tricky puzzle to get through there. You have to like throw one of your rocks through a window to open a door. I climb up. It's got one of those workbenches with a bunch of extra shit in it. And then I get to the top, and I'm like, oh, there's like a cute little story event here. And I click on it, and the game froze. It didn't freeze, though. I could still exit out. I could turn the camera. It's just the story didn't start and my characters got stuck. And I was like, okay. So I tried it again and it did the same thing. So third time around, I just said, fuck that story and headed on my way. We get back to the map and we're like, all right, it looks like the tower is over that way by those windmills where the people are like having a little festival. So we head over there. We see the people celebrating and doing their little dance business out in the countryside and head up to the tower through the windmills. There's some puzzles there, getting through the door, climbing up, moving around, kind of the same shit. And eventually we end up, I feel like it was pretty quick. We end up going down, let's see. Yeah, not too much. I can't remember anything that really happens in this section. Yeah, we get through the tower. There's nothing much there, and then we're like, all right, onward to the next part. The next part being the old fort, and I think we see the old fort from the tower, so maybe that's why it's important we went up there. But we're like, there's the old fort. Let's go. And then it's like time skip, and we're on the shore, and it's starting to get dark. And, we solve some puzzles. We get a new thing that we can do, which is where we can take a grappling hook, put it on our crossbow, shoot it at something, and then wind up that thing like we did earlier with the boat with Arnold. And we used like maybe twice. And we can use that winch to like break stuff or to open stuff or to do whatever. We end up using it like 4 or 5 times. And it's kind of annoying. And this whole section is super annoying. First, though, we find a dead body, and we're like, that's creepy as fuck. So Hugo gets super like, oh, I don't know, guys, maybe we should go back. And Amnesia's like, no, we're going to keep going. Let's go. And so you keep going, and then you find some more. Like a guy like gets thrown off like a cliff, and you're like, okay, everyone be quiet. And you come into this little ruined area, and dun, 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 there's slavers. Oh, no. And what are we supposed to do about these slavers? I don't know. I killed a lot of them. Partially, I was like, man, fuck these slavers. But also, the game really... like the stealth was like getting impossible. Like there's a section where you have to like immediately, as soon as you do this, I was able to like kind of get through the first little section to like the second section. And in the second section, there's like 6 guys. And even the first section, I essentially got caught, ran away and hid in the second section before everyone kind of like calmed down. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to be sneaky here. But there's a door that you have to not open like a normal door. You have to break it open using this winch thing. And the winch thing's literally on top of like a thing with no place to hide. And there's literally guys, like 2 or 3 guys, who are just like staring at the spot where you have to use this fucking thing. And I was like, all right, so people gotta die. And so we get introduced to a new bad guy. He's this big hulking guy with a helmet. I didn't realize how easy he would be to kill because, he's got a helmet, he's a big guy. So I'm like, oh man, it's one of these fucking dudes. It's like impossible to kill. I gotta like sneak around and shoot him in the back and do all this stuff. It's like way too much work. So I kill all the guys without helmets, and that leaves me 2 guys with helmets and then this big hulking dude. Little did I realize until much later when I just threw a rock at one of them per chance that if you throw a rock at them while they're like holding, because they have like little grenades of fire, they will drop it and kill themselves. And it's incredibly easy to kill them with just like your sling. And I was like, oh man, I should have done this from the start. Anyway, the helmet guys still are like virtually impossible unless you shoot them with a crossbow, which is annoying. Because everyone else kind of has like their weakness thing. I don't know, I can't just like knock the helmet off first. Whatever. Anyway, so this section I had to replay like way too many times. Because I kept like, I would like sneak, and then I'd shoot the thing in the door, and there's literally a guy just like standing in front of the door. And so he's immediately like, what's going on? And then he like looks straight at you every single time and is like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? And then everyone goes on high alert, and you gotta run and hide again, and then you gotta like, eventually, this is eventually what I did. I kept like dying, I kept trying to dodge around, I kept trying to be sneaky, I kept trying to distract people and do stuff, and it's just like, fuck you. Eventually I just like was like, YOLO, so I just ran up there as fast as I could, shot the thing, blew the door open, got everyone, ran away, ran like around this building, and then just ran at the door and opened it and got through. And I was like, that was way too stupid, like way too unenjoyable for any comfort. Then we bump into this guy, Marlowe, I think is his name, and he's all about killing slaves so that he can appease the child, which remember is Hugo at this point, so that he'll let him join and serve him so that he can help kill everybody with the rats. And then he makes some comments about how these slavers used to work for the Countess, but they don't work for her no more because she's a cunt. And so we're going to do our own thing. And this guy's like, I don't know, man. This seems like a really crazy thing to do. Like, why are we just like killing these slaves and trying to join Rat Boy? And then Marlowe doesn't take too kindly to those words. So he kills that guy and is like, all right, that's the start. And then for the rest of this portion of the game, there's just like slaves or human beings, right? Because the slave's like your occupation. There's like human beings like crucified, kind of like hanging from poles, gutted, all over the place. And Hugo is not having a good time. And it was at this point that I was like, man, I'm going to kill every fucking one of these like slavers. Like, fuck them. And I did a lot. I killed a lot of them. Which, this whole game I've been trying to avoid killing them. But man, fuck these guys. And that's how I had to get through. There was a few portions where I it was like, I essentially had to kill everyone to get through it. I mean, I could have been sneaky, maybe. Sasha, I keep wanting to call her Isabel from like Dragon Age 2. Anyway, so Sasha... it's not Sasha. Sophia. Sophia uses her prism, the one that she lights the grass on fire. She uses it to reflect the light so that we can get around. Oh, which is important, I forgot to mention, because guess who's back? Rats are back. And they're annoying as shit. And I was like, oh yeah, the rats. I hate the rats. I forgot how much I dislike the rats. Until I had to deal with them again. So we like sneaky around. Or before the rats show up. Oh, no, are they there earlier? Yep. Before the rats show up, we do some sneak action. Oh, no. The slaves almost get us. And then Hugo freaks out and summons rats to kill some guys. And then Sophia's like... And then Hugo like runs off because you yell at him for killing people and being upset. And then Sophia's like, the fuck did I just see? And you're like, sorry? We didn't mention this before? And she's like, I need a minute to think about this. And so you go comfort Hugo and tell him he's all right. Let Amicia be the mass murderer, that he can just be a little boy. And then you go apologize to Sophia, and she's like, fuck, y'all. All right, well, let's figure this out. So then... you start trying to figure it out, and then you get separated from Sophia, and you end up in the back of like a cage with a bunch of dead bodies in it, and then the rats like come in full force because what's his fuck like summon them with all these dead bodies and all this grotesquerie, I guess. I feel like it's very loose with like when the rats are around or not around. There was like periods of time when they were like, there's no rats on this island, and like I guess there were a whole fucking lot of them. So then you use Sophia's, and then Sophia comes back, and Amicia's like, oh, you came back. And Sophia's like, yeah, I don't know. I said I'd come back, so I'm going to keep my word. So you use her prism to get around some puzzly parts, and then you add guards to it. And there's this one section that I'm still trying to like puzzle out in my head, because I feel like I died so many times trying so many different things, and I feel like I got through it by like pure grit. And like I went through like, because you have these like, you have items, like you have your crossbow, and you only have like 2 crossbow bolts, and then you have like, you can carry 2 pots unless you upgrade, right? Which there's like no upgrade material, so like good luck fucking doing that. But I had to use like both my pots to get through this section. And it's literally just, there's like this river of flame, and God, I don't remember how I did it. And then there's just like tons of rats, and you're like at a fire, and then there's like a lamp over there. And so to get across the fire, you got to extinguish it. So the only way I could figure out how to extinguish it was to throw a pot. So I think that was supposed to happen. But then what happened next, I like threw another pot with like fire, and then I did something else, and I just like darted through this thing as like fast as humanly possible. And I started getting attacked by rats, but I like made it to like the safe zone like in the nick of time. And I was like, that's probably not what I was supposed to do. Like that was not like the envisioned result. Because this game doesn't really have... there's like an openness to it, but the openness is very like not really that open. There's pretty much like kill guards, sneak around, and if you're sneaking around, there's pretty much like, this is what you have to do to get past these guards. It's kind of tightly designed, which is good, but also kind of bad. Like I prefer the Thief, like the old school Thief games method of just like, hey, everything fucking works, just do whatever you want, right? This is more like, I know there's like a specific thing this wants me to do, but I'm getting so frustrated playing through this level again and keep dying and dying and dying, and then like that I'm just gonna like methodically, like a psychopath, kill every single one of these slavers one by one. Usually using the rats, because that was the easiest thing to do, because I don't want to waste like my 2 crossbow bolts in case there's like a real emergency. Anyway, so you get to this other section, and there's a portcullis guarding like the way forward. So you got to go. I got to kill everybody, which was like 6 guards or 7 guards. And then I get up, I open the portcullis, we go through, and now we're at the chapel, which is in the fort, which is what we were looking for. And it's like, cool, we found the chapel. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And then all around the chapel, there's just dead bodies bleeding out onto the ground. And then we open it up, get inside, and there's just like a fresco of the child and the guardian. This is the first time we've seen the guardian like depicted. And so it's like, oh, this must be like a chapel to her. And there's some like alchemist shit around, and Amicia somehow puts together, which I feel is just kind of like, it's like obviously true with later information that we receive. But initially she's like, oh, the alchemist order hated the guardian, and they wanted to get rid of her. And I was like, all you have is a fresco with the boy sitting on a throne and the guardian standing next to him. Like, why would you think that? And then you head downstairs, and there's a prison with like, it's another one of these things which, you know, in the back of the throne had the child like carved his name in the back. There's stones on the ground with like the guardian's name carved in it, and then there's like a stone she lifts that's like clearly been messed with. So Amicia lifts it up, and it's got the order's picture in there, like the symbol, and then inside that there's a ring in the middle. And then they're like, oh yeah, the order totally like locked her up here, and like we're fucking with her and doing all sorts of bullshit. And I'm like, okay, well now you have like evidence for what you're saying. But what you were saying before was just like, you were just making that shit up, girl. So whatever, that's what happened. And this whole time I'm like, that Marlowe guy was supposed to be back here somewhere, so he's definitely going to show up. And then the characters do the typical thing where it's like, they just don't learn. Like constantly being like jumped, and constantly, you know, being like, oh shit, there's more people here waiting for us behind this door. Because you go to leave the chapel, and there's windows that you could clearly look through. And I'm like, they're going to open that door. I'm going to open this door, and the Marlowe guy is going to jump out. And I thought he would be like a boss fight. But there's not really boss fights in these 2 games. There's kind of that one at the end of the first one where you like fight rats to rats or whatever. But that was kind of crazy too. Anyway, so you walk out the door, and Sophia gets like conked on the head with a statue by Marlowe, and then Amicia goes to punch him, but he's a big dude, and so he like knocks her down, and then Hugo's standing there, and he's like, hey, what are you doing? And then Marlowe's like, oh, you're the child, and he like gets on his knees, and he's like, oh, child, I'm here to fight for you and kill everybody and praise the rats and shit, bullshit. And then Hugo's like, that's not what I want. And then Sophia's like, gets the statue and beats the shit out of Marlowe and stabs him a bunch of times. And then she's like, let's go. Don't say anything, to Amicia, who gets up. And Amicia's like, hey, buddy, you doing all right? And Sophia's like, damn it, girl, I just told you to shut the fuck up. But then the guards come, or more the slavers come, and they're like, hey, they killed Marlowe, let's get him. And Sophia takes Hugo and like hides behind like a wooden thing. Is today bath day? Yes. And then Amicia gets another. This is like the second time we've been in like the arena killing dudes, and it wasn't fun the first time, and it's not fun the second time either. It's not necessarily hard. This was, out of all the tricky puzzles and like bullshit I had to go through to get here, this is where I figured out like, oh, the fat guys will just die if I hit their hand, because I was trying to use the sling to kill like an archer, and it just went straight to this guy's hand, and it turned yellow. And when it turns yellow, it's like this does something. So I was like, all right, let it rip. And I hit it, and he like blew up in flames. And I was like, oh. And then they got a shield guy, and then they have like one of these helmeted dudes, which I had to use a crossbow bolt because I can't figure out any other way to kill this guy. So I was like pissed off about that. I think I have to kill 2 of them, so you need 2 crossbow bolts. You just can't beat this level. It's fucking stupid. And then once we got them, and then like 4 helmet guys show up, and I was like, well, I'm fucking dead. And Hugo, the whole time Hugo's arguing with Amicia about helping, and she's like, no. And finally Hugo runs out, and he's like, I'm gonna help. And he summons so many rats, it like destroys the whole fort. essentially. It just collapses the whole thing on itself. And then Sophia's like, we should probably go into this boat back here, which the whole time she's arguing with Sophia too. Sophia's like, we should go. Let's just get out of here. And Amicia's like, well, find us a way out of here. Like, I'm trying to make sure we don't get killed. Jesus. And at some point I'm like, because I died like twice, and I was like, this really isn't that hard, but they keep sending guys. Like, am I supposed to like try to run away? So I found a gate, and behind the gate is the boat that we eventually took, but I couldn't open it during this battle scene. Anyway, so we get on the boat, and then Sophia's like, Jesus Christ, I don't know why, but I really like hanging out with you guys, but you're fucking trouble, and you guys need to calm it the fuck down, and you need to stop. Amicia, you need to stop being a bad example to your brother and being such a psychopath, trying to kill people and solve all your problems with violence. And I was like, I would take offense to this, but I was like, fuck you, man. They were slavers. Anyway. And then Hugo and Amicia promised to do better. Like a fucking struggle session. And that's the end of chapter 10. And chapter 11 opens up, and we're back in like the big open field area with just rats fucking everywhere. And Hugo's like, did I do that? And Amicia's like, nah, we all know who did that. And then that's the end of the conversation. And I was like, did Marlo do it? Yeah, I guess that's what happened. I feel like I'm reading too much into this. Like, it should just be like clear what's happening. Like, not like, I thought Hugo did summon the rats. Whatever. Oh, we also get some commentary from Hugo, that super creepy commentary where he's like, oh, I'm very upset about having to do this, and we're going to kill those fucking rats. And then Hugo's like, but the rats are having such a good time. And I was like, stop being such a creepy asshole, dude. The fuck? Anyway. That's chapter 10. So we continue our journey. We're now on the island in the open, and we're trying to figure out what to do. In my head, I thought we were trying to figure out what to do with the ring, but that's not, like doesn't come up again, at least for like several hours of playtime. Oh, excuse me, I'm still like congested. I'm getting all this like mucus. So we work our way through the rats and get to the map again, and then we're like, okay, well, it's probably underneath the map, so let's just destroy the map, right? And again, I guess that's a thing you would do. Like, I feel like a lot of these conclusions they come to, it's like, well, that makes sense because I play video games, but I don't know why, like, a Renaissance era, like, pirate captain and children would, like, come up with the idea that we have to push over a column to destroy, like, a mural on the ground to get to, like, an underground chamber. And I don't know. I just sometimes I feel it's not like I'm doing other stuff. I'm just playing the game, and then, I mean, I guess I'm a dummy because I don't remember them. Like it just feels like a logical leap a lot of the time, like how they come to these conclusions of things. And I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, that's what I would do, but I've been playing video games for like 40 years. Like, but you're like a 15-year-old girl in medieval France. Like, why would you ever consider this as like something you should do? Whatever. So they go down into the tunnel, and eventually they find it's a giant... Oh, well, first they see signs of Amicia Part 1, who was the original Guardian, and she's like, there's a bunch of dead bodies, and then there's like some markings where she like came down here and she just like slaughtered folks trying to rescue the boy, the carrier, they keep calling him, the original... He has like a name, it's like Borealis or something. The original Hugo. And... eventually they find her dead body and like, oh, it's so sad she wasn't able to rescue the carrier. And, there's a lot of chit-chat about being sad and sad times and all this stuff. And they're like, well, we got to keep going deeper. We got to find out what happened to the boy and see if that can help us figure out what to do. And eventually they stumble into a big rat's warren, like one of these like terrible rat cages. And, she falls down into the rats and has to run away. And then she has to like work her way back. And there's like a bridge. It's like a big chamber. It's like they refer to it as like a cathedral, which, yeah, I get that. To the boy, right? And that the alchemists like created here to like store him or to do something. Anyway, tons of rats, tons of like shit going on. And they put like 2 and 2 together, and it's like, oh, the Justinian plague that happened, like there was a big plague in like Byzantium. I want to say like 800 AD or something, 600, somewhere around there. So they're referring back to that as like, oh, that was the original Immaculum. That plague was actually the rats, and it was caused by this guy because eventually they get to a tower, and the tower takes them all the way down, and there's like bubbling pusses of orange rat chambers all around them, and Sophia's kind of like, this is fucking crazy. And they get to the very bottom in the final chamber, and inside is like the boy who looks like he's been encased in like rat goo, and he's chained up like a fucking like prisoner of war. Like he's like manacled with his hands above his head, and he's like kneeling over, and it's pretty horrific. And Hugo kind of loses it a little bit, but then Amicia is able to pull him back together, and then Sophia's just like watching the pulsating baubles of orange rat goo, and she's like, we should probably go. Because they decide, like, okay, if I can keep Hugo alive and we can have a peaceful life, we can just go do our own thing. We don't have, like, the reason why this plague happened in the first place, and the reason why these rats keep coming is because Hugo's getting, like, stressed out. Like, it's like he's got schizophrenia, and, like, as long as there's no, like, emotional like experiences, like it's just kind of like chill, he's fine. He's not going to be hallucinating or summoning rats to destroy whole countrysides. So they just got to like find some place to like chill and not like and let the rats just do their thing elsewhere. So they book it out of there as the rats start to explode around you and the whole place starts to collapse, and they're able to finally like get themselves out. And it's like, holy shit, that was crazy, y'all. So then next up, yeah, okay, so they get back out. I'm just trying to remember. I think there's like a chapter break here, so it goes from like chapter 11 to chapter 12 of the game. So then we're back out, and it's like, all right, well, let's get on Sophia's boat and get the fuck out of here. And so they proceed to try to do that, but then we bump into like one of the Count's guards, and instead of being like a bad guy at this juncture, he's just like, hey, you're the Count's guest, right? And so, Amicia's like, yeah, but we're just going to go. We'll see you guys later. Good luck with the rats. He's like, wait, you have guests here? And she's like, we have guests? And it's like, yeah, your mom and some boy, it's like Lucas, showed up, and they're looking for you. And she's like, oh, and he goes like, oh, mommy, we got to go see mommy. And Amicia's like, yeah, I guess so. And Sophia's like, I'm going to go back to my ship. I will see you guys over there. Because she's wise. And Amicia, if she was wise, she would just be like, well, fuck her, we're gonna leave. But she doesn't. So to be fair, she's like 14, so if her mummy's like around, it's like, oh, okay, well, okay. So her and Hugo follow the guard, and all the people are like hiding out inside the Count's manor castle thingy. And there's a lot of injured people, and the guards are maintaining like fire all along the roads, and they created a big like fire trench around the keep, which I mean, these rats can burrow like a bitch. Like, good luck. None of that shit's gonna do jack shit at the end of the day, which is proven in this chapter later on. So we follow it through, we find Mummy and Lucas, and everyone's like happy reunions, and they're hugging it out, and Amicia, the mummy, she's worried that her mummy's gonna be mad, but mummy's not mad. She's just like, oh, Amicia, I love you, I'm glad that you're okay. And she's like, Mummy, and they like, hug it out. And then some guard comes along, he's like, you girl, the Count's looking for you, so you need to come. And she's like, just me? And it's like, just you. And he's like, okay. And it's like, don't do it, the Count's, come on, all this shit you've seen, he's crazy. He's not just crazy, he's an evil crazy person. But she goes because she's dumb and a teenager, and these people like they refuse to learn their lesson that you can't trust the church, you can't trust nobles, you can't trust anybody except maybe the alchemists. I mean, they seem like really real bastards, but I mean, the mom has been pretty good, and then even the other guy was like treating Hugo not very well. He was like not necessarily doing anything that sketchy. So you follow the guard, or Amicia follows the guard to the Count, and the Count's like, Amicia, come look. Something, bullshit. And at some point, I can't remember if it's here or a little bit later, he talks about Emily, who's the Countess. I think it's Emily. I seem to remember him saying Emily a lot. We'll just go with the Countess. The Mummy part 2. So, and how she was like abused. We don't know how abused, like sexually, emotionally, physically. It's just abused. He hints at there was a lot of abuse and a lot of like crazy stuff going on when she was a kid, so she's kind of nutters, like Mummy Part 2, the Countess, and that he loves her, and that he essentially founded this whole area and created the like religion of the boy. We all knew it was like some bullshit, but he essentially like created this whole like religion based around like these frescoes and stuff he saw to like placate her and give her something to like do because he's so in love that he just wants to take care of her and do anything he can for her. And that now Hugo's going to be her son because he's the boy and he's returned, and the rats are like a sign. And he's like, I kind of just like fell into like facts and like now this shit's happening. So like now the boy's got to stay and stuff. And Amicia's like, what? And then he pushes Amicia down the stairs and she like dislocates her shoulder. And then we play like a little game of cat and mouse where we just got to run. And all that running finally gets us to like a Coliseum area where we see our actual mummy, and she is tied up. And then crazy mommy part 2, the Countess, is walking around with a knife saying crazy shit about how like she's going to take care of their boy and that mummy is no longer needed because the new mummy's in town. And he says like, stop it, you crazy bitches. And then at that point the Count shows up and he like beats the shit out of Amicia and is about to kill her. But then mommy part 2 is like, no, sweetie, you have to forgive my husband. Or I think mommy part 1 calls out and is like, from mother to mother, please stop this. And she's like, okay, Count, whatever your name is, stop this. I demand it, as mummy part 2. And then she apologizes to mummy 1 and is like, hey, I'm sorry, he's been in a lot of war. He's kind of nutters too. And it's like, man, everyone in this game is fucking crazy. Like, except Sophia and possibly Arnold. So actually, Lucas seems like he has a pretty good head on his shoulders too, to be honest. Everyone else is crazy. Literally, every single other person you meet in this game is kind of crazy. Especially Amicia and Hugo. Anyway. So at this point, we take control of Hugo, and he like wakes up and he's like, "Oh, what's going on?" So he starts wandering around, and he stumbles into this like insane scene with like the Count standing over Amicia, and the Countess with his actual mommy like standing on like her tied to a pole, and he's got a knife, and he is like, "What the fuck?" And then mommy part 2 is like, "Oh no, I'm sorry." At this point, right before Hugo wakes up, before we switch over, Emily, the Countess, slits mummy's throat and kills her, and Misa's like, no. And that probably wakes up Hugo, I guess, in turn, like his soul or something. Anyway, so he sees this and he's like, mummy, and then Emily's like, oh, and she like tries to hide the knife. She's like, oh, your mummy's sleeping, sweetie, you need to go back to bed and we'll figure this all out in the morning. And he's like, no, I will not. Bah! And he like summons rats, and then Lucas like shows up somewhere, and and Hugo and Lucas like run into the middle of the Coliseum area, or it's more like an amphitheater, and rats start circling them, and Amicia's like rolling around, and Lucas is like, oh shit, man, this is getting real fucking crazy, oh shit, bro. And Hugo's like, I'm gonna kill them all, and Lucas is like, nah, bro, I don't think that's the way to do this, and Amicia's like, fuck them, do it. And then as Hugo, you just summon rats to kill guards for quite some time until you like take care of that pretty heartedly. Well, essentially until his like stress meter goes full bore, and then it like kills all the guards that are trying to get to you with their torches. They thought the fire would help them. It would not. The fucking rats. And then like Emily's like standing there and she's like, oh sweetie, you need to calm down. And you're like, fuck you. You destroy the whole stage. And then the Count's like, oh, you assholes, I'll get you. I'll teach you a lesson. And his guards are like, dude, we gotta go. The fuck? Like, they just summoned rats and killed everybody. Like, you're next. Like, you crazy dumbass. Good stuff. Anywho, at this point, Amicia kind of like stands back up and she's like, we gotta go. And Hugo's kind of passed out, and then the whole thing like collapses in on itself, and they end up in like this antechamber below with no rats, which is nice. But Amicia still got like her dislocated shoulder. Hugo looks passed out. We actually start with Lucas. Lucas wakes up and he's like, hello? And he's all by himself. We don't take control of him, but he kind of wanders and he hears Amicia like screaming and calling for Hugo. And then he sees her, and Hugo looks just kind of zoned. He looks dead, but he kind of wakes up, and then he just looks like totally zonked out, like a zombie almost. Like he's either like experienced like extreme freezing from like a traumatic experience, which is the most likely scenario in real life. But in game, maybe, I don't know, maybe he's just possessed with rat magic so much that he's just kind of like chilling. These people write pretty well, I gotta say. So he's probably just, in that freeze form of flight and flight that happens to children when they experience very traumatic experiences, like losing their mummy and letting the rats take over. Which I think would count. Childhood trauma. This poor kid, man. I'm with the Alchemist, to be completely honest. Like, hey, man, he's not going to have a good life. Like, after that first game, I think we're far past the point where he's going to have, like, a quiet, enjoyable life. Like, nightmares are going to be a thing forever. Even if the rat thing is completely solved, like, maybe putting him down is the best option. It's not going to be good times. And he's never going to recover, because this is, like, medieval Renaissance France. Like, there's no, like, therapy or drug, medication. He is going to have a real hard time adjusting to anything. Anyway, that being said, we start wandering through this cavern, and we're like, Lucas and Amicia. Oh, and then Amicia tries to climb over something, and her fucking shoulder, it's all dislocated and shit. And so Lucas comes over, he's like, let me take care of this. It'll hurt. And she's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, bruh. Oh, Amicia also lost her ponytail. No. Oh, she's like such on the verge of looking like a boy. To be fair, there's a lot of that DAI and all this bullshit, and this is like a French game that's, I'm sure, full of the woke mind virus. But Amicia looks like a Scandinavian girl. She doesn't look quite French, I would say, but she doesn't look bad. And then, like, Sophia looks like a woman. Like, most of the women look like women, I would say. It's, like, verging on that edge of, like, every woman is actually a man who's a woman kind of thing that a lot of newer games do. But I don't think it's quite there. But they still portray Amicia as pretty manly, which, again, she's, like, a 14-year-old girl. Like, whatever. But you cut the ponytail off. I'm like, why? It's just kind of like, it's one of those things that's like, ugh, that's stupid. Why did they do that? And like, for no reason. Like, no one's really bothered by it. Like, the guy's gonna like kill her, and then instead, or before it's not even like he's gonna kill her and then he cuts the ponytail off as like, well, I won't kill her, but I'll take this as a reward for my insanity. No, he's just like, he's beating the shit out of her and then cuts her ponytail off and then goes to kill her. And I'm like, what was the point of that? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, this was very intentional, but I don't understand. It's like, but it doesn't serve any purpose. So it was clearly like, it's one of those things that, like, I've been around long enough and I've dealt with this shit that it's like, this is clearly agenda driven and I don't like it. Right? It's not like ruining the game or anything like that. It's just kind of like, it's stupid. Like, why are you doing this? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, takes me out of the moment. But at this point, we kind of wrap up this playthrough, this portion of the playthrough. I think we just kind of wander a little bit, and then we'll see what happens. I'm sure they'll escape, maybe? We'll see. All right. It's the end of the sun. Not quite yet. Not quite yet, though. All right. So we start off, or where we left off, the Amicia, Hugo's like kind of zoned the fuck out, and Amicia and Lucas are trying to like help him, and they get stuck in this area. And so Amicia does like her usual puzzle solving business, where she's got to like use her sling to break that chain, to open that door, to then push this thing aside, to then go in a different entrance, to hop over a thing, to then use like her grappling hook crank crossbow thingy to pull a thing, and it gets stuck. They were gonna climb out, but now they gotta go deeper in these like labyrinthian tunnel system underneath this like island, and so they end up like pushing their way through, and dun dun dun, there's a lot of fucking rats, because of course there is. And then Lucas starts commenting about how the Noctma. I know that's not what it's called. The nebula? I think it's a nebula. The nebula is what the maculum is going to use to like blot out the sun so that the rats can kill everyone. And so that's like bad times. Amicia is like, I don't know, that sounds like some crazy bullshit to me. But you see a lot more of these, like the orange pulse balls with all the rat creatures inside, right? And you see some green smoke, and he's like pointing at it, being like, that's it, that's the nebula, we're all fucked. And Amicia's like, shut up. And she pulls a torch off the wall, and she's like, let's go. And so she starts walking, and Lucas is like ranting on about like, stay away from those bubbles, and we gotta be careful because the nebula is gonna turn off the light. And Amicia's like, okay, yeah, Lucas, whatever. And then she almost like blows one of these things up on top of her, and all these rats pour out, and then the green smoke almost like knocks out their torch, and she's like, "Oh shit!" And Lucas is like, "Ah! I told you, you dumb bitch." And Missy's like, "I'm sorry, I made a mistake." Also, previously I talked about her hair getting cut for no reason. She now has like a tiny bit of her ponytail left that she is doing like a man bun, like like a little top knot kind of situation. Whatever. So after we get through this hellish nightmare, we pop back up on the surface, and it's like, oh, we got to get to the harbor. Man, fuck this place. Let's get the fuck out of here. And like the landscape's totally destroyed because the rats are like causing earthquakes and end times kind of shit going on. The crew moves forward, and they come into like this crevasse that's full of rats and these orange bulbous things in the walls. And they're like, uh-oh, well, I guess we got to find a different way to go around. And Hugo's like, no. And he's like finally woke the fuck up. He's like, no, I am tired of this. And he goes up and he's like, you all need to listen to me. I'm in charge. You're not in charge. I command you to go to the sea. So all the rats burst out of the orange goo, and all the rats that are there, they just like run themselves right into the ocean. And it's like, oh, that's cool. And Amicia is like, I didn't know you could do that. And he's like, yeah, it hurts, so I don't do it. And it never happens again. I mean, he definitely summons rats again to like kill motherfuckers, but there's just like the neutral abdication of like rat lifehood into the ocean. He should do a lot more of that, but he doesn't. So they proceed forward, and we get through this really terrible open area, which is, it's one of these where it's like you got to do a lot of sneaky sneak, but at some point you got to kill motherfuckers because you have to like make all this noise and do this big thing, and there's like 2 or 3 dudes just like standing around. So I was like, oh, it's this thing again. So I didn't waste as much time on this because I know the drill. Also, there's like stats. I have not brought this up, I don't think. But so you can upgrade your equipment, and it's very minuscule, like kind of like quality of life stuff where it's like you can hold like 1 more crossbow bolt, you know, kind of upgrades, or like you don't need tools to upgrade, but you also the tools are not what's slowing you down from upgrading your equipment. It's like the materials, which are like very rare and far between. I guess unless you're doing like some real hardcore exploring, which I am not, because this game is like barely functioning on PC. I discovered that playing on the monitor, it makes it worse. So I've just been playing it on the laptop, and it's been running a lot smoother. You'll probably see the video. It goes from like good to terrible to worse to slightly better to like back to the original, which is like smooth. But it still does like the choppy sound thing and all that. And again, that's like every forum I read about this on PC, people were complaining about it. So also I realized this time that NVIDIA had like a strong hand in like the crafting of this system. So it might be like an AMD thing because my video card's AMD because I'm foolish. I like AMD cards, and I've always gone with them. But with the AI thing and NVIDIA were like tripling down, I should have got an NVIDIA card. Anyway, it is what it is. I still got Stable Diffusion to work on this AMD card, so God bless me. Anywho, going forward, okay, so we get through that part, and then we hear that Arnaud's still alive and that he's going to get hung. And Hugo's like, oh, we got to rescue. He's my buddy. I like that guy. He's so cool. And Amicia's like, man, fuck that guy. And Hugo's like, no. And he, all right, fine. Because at some point someone was like, oh, we're going to go down to the harbor and hang this guy. And she's like, whatever. It's like right there. It's on the way. And motherfucker, it's not on the way. There's like Sophia's boat, and they're hanging him like 10 feet away. like you would have to go excessively out of your way not to rescue Arnaud, which is kind of silly. Game. You're sometimes game, you're very silly. But whatever, I'm still enjoying it. The game's still like an easy like 7.5 or 8 out of 10. I'm super enjoying it. So even when it pisses me off, which it pisses me off a lot, because mostly because of the bugs. I also don't enjoy the combat. It's like I played Mirror's Edge and Mirror's Edge Catalyst years ago at this point. And the worst part, those games are super fun until you have to fight. And that is the same problem with this game and the previous game. It's like, I really enjoy the sneaking around. I enjoy the story. I enjoy the atmosphere is so good. And even the like not pretty women are like fine. Because like no one's like super hot looking, so it's kind of like they're going for like a gritty medieval reality, which I mean they're beautiful women if you look at like any sort of like realist art that was done in that time period, but whatever. Like people have not just gotten more attractive over time. That is some bullshit historical revisionism. that aside, it's fine, right? It's like a consistent thing. And there's still some pretty women, like the Countess was very pretty. The mom's kind of hot. She's like definitely a MILF. So it's not like a universal like uglifying of women through like DEI nonsense. So we do some more like puzzle jumping around, getting through some guards, running away from guards mostly, doing all that stuff. Oh, what I was about to say is that so there's a crafting system, but there's also like a stat system. But the stat system you have no control over outside of the fact that like the more you do certain actions, the more your stats kind of go up. And there's 3 stats. There's like prudence, I think is one of them. And then like aggression and like a third one. Or opportunism. And you may be like, what the fuck does all that mean? Prudence is stealth, aggressiveness is killing dudes, and opportunism is also killing dudes, but not like directly killing dudes. It's like, oh, I turned off the light and the rats ate them. And so in my head, I'm like, how do you even like, and it's not like, oh, you do a couple of the kills or you do a couple things. Like, I'm at like the end of this fucking game. And my prudence, which I have focused, because I like the stealthy part. So most of what I've done is stealth, and my prudence is still not maxed out. And then I have a bunch of points in opportunism, and like none in aggression. And I'm like, I've killed a lot of motherfuckers in this game. But I guess I'm like, it's like opportunity attacks instead of like I'm running up and stabbing them or shooting them with the crossbow. But I feel like, I mean, you put me in these arenas, and I'm just like crossbow dead, crossbow dead, crossbow dead. Which again, it's like the combat is not good. It's fine. It's very serviceable, right? But it's really designed. It's like Thief, right? It's like it's designed to be like stealthy. But in this, you literally have like here's your Doom arena. Fight the fucking demons, and you can leave when they're all dead, like multiple times. And I'm like, man, what that involves is me running in circles around the arena, shooting crossbow bolts. The 2 crossbow bolts I'm allowed to have, until like new crossbow bolts just spawn magically. Getting those and then using those to kill people. And there's like other ways to kill people, but it's kind of the same thing. It's like throw a pot of tar at them, light them on fire. Some guys are in full armor, so you literally have to use crossbow bolts. So if I accidentally used a crossbow bolt to kill like another guy who's about to murder me in my face, now I gotta like run around the arena until like new crossbow bolts like just magically show up. And it's like this is not fun. Like like it goes back to like kind of the what is it, the Deus Ex complaint that people are more familiar with, where it's like I designed a character that was pure stealth, and then you're like, okay, here's a giant robot you gotta fucking kill, and you're like, with my pistol proficiency? Like, fuck you, game. And this is not nearly as bad. Like again, I can just run around in circles, get crossbow bolts, which kill people in like one hit, except for the knight or the full armored guys, which you gotta hit them in the chest or the back, and then you can kill them. So it's like 2 shots. Or the shield people, which you have to distract using like your alchemy magic. I can't even imagine getting through some. I mean, none of the battles were like that difficult, but I can't imagine the tedious nature, because I can like make a mistake most of the time and get knocked down and then get back up and be like, okay, I waited too long to shoot that guy. Fair enough. But I'm playing on the easiest difficulty, so I can only imagine on the hardest difficulty, like you got to be like constantly on the move, and it's got to drag out. Like there's nothing enjoyable about that at all. Like I don't even understand why this game has like a difficulty at all. It should just like combat should be forgiving. Like. Because that's not the point. I guess maybe if you're going for the super aggressive, but I don't know. And you can get knives to stab dudes, but that is the rarest commodity, despite like blades aplenty. And then most of the time I'm using the knives to break open chests to get more stuff, so I can try to upgrade like the minimum amount of upgrades I'm allowed. Anyway, so my prudence is really high, so clearly my stealthing idea is working, even though I feel like I'm murdering like half the people I run into. Whatever. I don't think it has any effect on the story or the ending. But so we get to Arnold, and then this is an arena. This is my like loose train of thought here. So once we get to Arnold, we start killing dudes before they hang him, and then we kill dudes for so long. And there's a bug here where at the very end of the battle you go to like, okay, I killed everybody, and then we go to rescue Arnold, and then like it's that thing again where it's like, oh, there's a whole like 20 dudes like show up at this. The whole time it's like we're fighting like 2 or 3 guys at a time, and then all of a sudden there's like 15 dudes, and it's like, oh, they're all gonna come get us. There's no way for me to fight all of them. They all got fucking shields and stuff like a normal army, and not just like pitter patter of like little feet coming one at a time to fight me. I guess Hugo's gonna have to save the day with his rats, and then he does, and then the game just sat there, and I was like, am I supposed to do something here? And so I start walking around, And then I'm like, oh, there's like a white dot, which indicates there's like a button to press on Hugo. But Hugo's in the middle of all these rats. And so I'm like, oh, maybe I just need to walk up. And then the rats kill me. And then I go back to the very middle of the fucking battle in the arena again. And I played through this thing like 4 or 5 times before I was able to like find a way to like get hit by the guards while also distracting the guards so that they all died far enough away from Hugo so that when I walk up to him, I only have to use my fucking like, what is it called? That thing where there's a thing where you like I don't even know what you're doing. You put like you put something in your sling and you bash it around like crazy and it drives all the rats off, right? And then after doing this like 4 or 5 times, trying to like find a way for the guards to not be so close to Hugo that the rats are going to eat me the second I try to like click on him and continue the story. And at some point I was like, man, I'm not. This is the end of this game, like, because it was so complicated. And I don't know if it was just like the PC or my addition to the game, or just some bullshittery with just bad luck continuously. But I finally got it, so that the rats started nibbling on my ankles right before I hit them, and the story continued. And I was like, oh, I thought I was going to die again. Thank goodness. So then we rescue Arnold, and everything's forgiven. We all like high five, we all fist bump each other, and then we get on the ship, and Sophia like kills a guard that's like in there for some reason that she was just hanging out waiting, and it's like, oh, we're all alive, thank goodness, hooray, victory, and it's like some nice music playing, and you're like, oh boy, it's gonna get real sad again. And so then we're back on the ship, and I'm like, they should just live on the ship. There's no rats on the ship. And you like chat with everybody, and you have like nice conversations, and everyone's like nice and friendly, and oh, this is so nice. My plan is I'm going to go to the mountains with Hugo. My mom has a home there, yada, yada, yada. And then all of a sudden, dun, 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 there's a ship following you, because of course there's. And it's the Count, because he's an asshole. And so try as you might, he rams into your ship, and then you get up and you help Arnold like fight off these guys. But there's this tiny little ship, which could maybe hold I killed like 12 guys, maybe 20. Like the ship had to have been like over brimming with soldiers to the point of almost sinking. There were so many soldiers that I killed before the game. I finally like got like this guy like walked through fire behind my back to get me and knock me down. And so at that point, you like run to like get away. It goes into like story mode. So Armisia runs to get away and gets shot right in the stomach. Oh, she's dead. And so Arnold goes to defend her, and then Hugo's like runs out, and the Count comes out, and he's like, my son, the son of my wife Emily, who is dead. You are my son now. We will like blot out the sun and destroy the world, or some crazy bullshit nonsense. And Hugo's like, no, and Hugo runs out, and he like tries to summon the rats, but he's in the ocean, and which is funny because that's what I was like, is he really thinking? I was like, is he going to be able to summon rats in the ocean? That would be crazy. That doesn't make any sense. And even the Count's like, what are you doing? We're in the middle of the fucking ocean, dude. Or like the Mediterranean Sea. So he like gives him a little like Spock chop to like knock him out and picks him up. And then him and Arnold go back and forth about, you're going to cause the end of the world and all this bullshit. And then finally Arnold just grabs Amicia and they like jumps over the edge of the boat. And that's like the end of chapter 14, I want to say. Or no, at some point we're in like chapter 15. It might be here. So then Amicia wakes up on shore, and Arnold's giving her some like whiskey or something to like, hey, this helps numb the pain. We used to use this in the battlefield all the time. And you find out that like Lucas survived, Sophia survived, but the ship like crashed like crazy. And so you're like, oh, we gotta figure out what the Count is. We gotta rescue Hugo. And Arnold's like, of course we will. And so you guys start going back to the ship, which I don't know why you're all the way over here. Oh, I think Lucas went over to you guys like rolled into shore on this beach, on this island, or on the mainland in France or whatever. And then Lucas and Sophia went to go like see what they could get from the storage of the ship. And when you get over there, dun dun dun, the Count's there, and he wants to fight. And he put Hugo somewhere else, but he came back to finish the job of killing Amicia because fuck you, that's why. So then Arnold's like, that's it, and he starts fighting the Count, and then you have to fight everybody else. And it's another one of these arenas where you're just running around in circles, grabbing shit, and then killing dudes, and you kill like 10 more guys all by yourself. Like this woman is like a Valkyrie, like fucking massacring dudes. And then, so I kill maybe 5 or 6 guys, and then you see like this giant cloud of like the nebula go up into the sky and like darken the sky, and you can hear Lucas in the distance, and he's like, oh no, the nebula, we're all fucked. And Sophia's like, shut up. And Amicia's like, I got this, don't worry. And then you got to kill like 5 more guys with like the cloud, which doesn't, I mean, they can see fine, even though I can barely see them. The only reason I know they're there is because they got their stupid like red, like the little like, oh, they're angry. They got their little thing above their head, their stealth thing. So I end up killing all them. And then Arnold takes one to the chest, as in the Count stabs him in the chest. But Arnold's able to like knock the Count's helmet off, which, you know, once the helmet's off, it's game time, friends. So then I sling his ass, and he dies. And then Arnold and Amicia have like a very sad goodbye. And Arnold's like, thank you. And then Sophia comes over, and she like cries out a little bit. And then it's like, oh, we gotta go. So then you guys get on a cart that you found that has something on it. We're gonna find out shortly what that is. And they start riding off to try to track down Hugo and save the day. All right, so we're close to the end here. After all the rampaging and the killing of the Count and the releasing of the nebula and whatnot, we are on the back of a cart that we stole from the Count's ship. That just so happens to have Greek fire in like a flamethrower built into it, and we're on the back of carts. So you're like, oh, I play video games. I know how this is gonna go, and it does what you think it's gonna do, but also it doesn't really. So we roll up to, I think we're in Marseille at this point, and it's all barricaded against things coming out. And there's like the dark clouds in the sky, and it's all very ominous, and people are like running away talking about, oh, what about the people inside the walls? And like someone's like, oh, they're fucking dead. That's what's going on with them. And we're like, oh man, we got to find a way to get in there so we can save Hugo. And so Amicia hops on the back, realizes that this thing's like a fucking flamethrower, uses it to light some hay bales on fire, so that it like opens up a pathway, so that the crew can take the cart to like a different part of the town wall, so they can get in. And then almost immediately, the rats start bursting through the wall and chasing you. And I guess I used the flamethrower to hold them back. It seemed like if I did nothing, the exact same thing would have happened. But maybe if I didn't just like constantly hold like the shoot button while the cart was being led away automatically driven by Sophia, that maybe the rats would have caught up. I don't know. Like, it just seemed kind of dumb. And then at some point, the cart crashes, but we're not being killed by rats. We're just all together. And then, so Lucas and Sophia and Amicia. So we move around a little bit. There's not really puzzle solving. It's just, at this point, this game has become like a walking simulator. Like, I don't think there's any puzzles past this point. There's like one little like running thing we got to do, but it's not so much a puzzle as in like wait for a wave of rats and then run to the next like wall. But before we get there, we just kind of meander and chit chat about like what's going on and how we're all going to work together. And Amicia keeps trying to like be like, you guys should go and be safe and I'll take care of it. And then Lucas and Lucas keeps saying like, no, Hugo needs as much like of his friends and family as he can have, so he can like retain his consciousness and come back or something like that. And so you all proceed forward, and then you're like standing on a tower committing to each other, and you're like, all right, you guys ready to take the dive? And you're like, yeah, let's take the dive. And in the distance, you see this giant white ball surrounded by mist, and there's just like waves of rats who like burst out and like slam against everything. And it's at some point they slam into like the tower you're standing in so hard that the tower like collapses and everyone falls. And it like breaks Sophia's legs or something. She like can't go any further at this point. And there's like, they hug it out, her and Amicia, and they're all sad. And then Lucas is like, oh, I gotta find Lucas. And he's like, I'm right here. I'll meet you over there. And so Sophia's like, I'll be okay. Just go take care of what you gotta take care of and I'll be here. And you're like, okay, sounds good. So this is the part with the rats. So you get to this thing and you just see waves of rats coming up, and then there's like a break and there's some walls. They break around like literally like a wave. And Lucas is like, I timed it. We can make it to that wall if we like go immediately. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And in my head, I just assumed the game would not let me jump into a pile of rats. I was wrong, so I died immediately. And then I had to play through. It wasn't that bad. Yeah. There was like a bit of story I had to sit through, but not too much. And then we made the run, and I got through the rest of the wall running puzzle, I guess you could call it, pretty unscathed. It was just like, I think it was like 6 different iterations. And then the last one, we just run onto this bridge, and the bridge leads out into like the mist towards the giant white ball. And before we go into the white ball, Lucas is like, okay, so this is the nebula. How it works is that it's like very metaphysical and bullshitty, and you're gonna not be in reality but also be in reality, and it's gonna be kind of crazy. So just remember, things aren't always what they seem, and your mind's gonna play tricks on you and shit. And so you head in there, and then you lose Lucas immediately, and you just start wandering around being like, Hugo. And then you see Phoenix statues, and it's like, oh, okay, I gotta follow the Phoenix statues. That's how this works. So you start following the Phoenix statues, and then at some point you hear Hugo's voice, and he's like, what the fuck you doing? And Amicia's like, I'm following the Phoenix statues to you. And he's like, that didn't fucking work last time. Why do you think it worked this time? And she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm losing my fucking mind here. Like, this is so crazy. And he's like, well, it's not gonna work. Figure something else out. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I gotta go the opposite way of where the Phoenix statues are pointing. So I tried that, and then Hugo taunts me by being like, Amicia, why are you still following the birds? I'm like, fuck you, Hugo. I'm not following the birds. I'm doing what you said. I'm doing something different. So then I'm like, all right, what else can I see in this like foggy, empty landscape? And I'm like, well, there's the sun. I guess I'll just walk towards the sun. And I'm assuming that's what I was supposed to do. I don't know if the game just like at some point is like, congratulations, you made it to the next portion of this fever dream. But I walked, and then when the sun was like almost directly over my head, it was like Hugo like congratulated me, and then like I phased out and then like phased in, and I'm standing next to like a bonfire, and there's rats everywhere, and then the rats start forming into people, and they're like coming towards me, and I'm killing them with my sling, which has like unlimited fire magic now. And then Hugo's trying to be like, it's not gonna work. You gotta accept something. You gotta accept something, blah blah blah. And I'm like, no. And Misi's like, no, I refuse. And I'm like, bitch. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do here. Because there's just more and more of these things. I'm like, I'm going to put the fire out and just accept fate. And so I did. And that was also the right thing to do, I think. I don't know if they eventually just overwhelm you regardless of whether you put the fire out or not. So, who knows? I got a phone. All right, so I got a call mid recording, so let me think for a second. Okay, yeah. So at that point, we wake up and we're like, no, Hugo, and then Hugo like shows up, but it's clearly like not real Hugo. It's like imaginary Hugo, whether that's like Amicia's thinking or like Hugo manifesting himself. And you guys hold hands and you walk, and she talks about how they're gonna be free and be able to live their life and do whatever. And then Hugo's kind of like leading her to the conclusion that that's not gonna fucking happen at this point. Like it's too late, and that he's barely able to hold back the rats, and he's already killed like hundreds of thousands of people with the plague. Like the Black Death is the assumption here during this, based on the time frame, the previous Justinian plague, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't come up in the game. I'm just in my head. I'm like, oh, maybe this is supposed to be like the Black Plague that kills people. And the rats are like a metaphysical manifestation of the Black Death given by rats. Anyway. So eventually Amicia like curls up in a ball. Like Hugo, she's like, "You're right, Hugo. I have to end this. I have to take care of this." And in my head, I was like, "Man, she was listening to your fucking mom. That's what she was trying to tell you from the get-go." And that other guy too is like, "No, we just gotta kill this bitch. Like, we gotta put him in a safe place, kill him, so that he doesn't like cause more problems, and be done with the Immaculum until it pops up again some other day in the future." So she's like on the ground, freaking out, rolling around, and then she's like, I can't be alone. And then Lucas comes and gives her a hug, and it's very sweet. And he's like, you're not alone. We're together. We got this. And he picks Amicia up, and Amicia, they start walking forward, and there's just like this huge river of rats that parts, right? It's very symbolic. And against like a tree is Hugo, just like kind of like pressed up against it, like the branches are like holding him in place. And you get close enough, and it's like he's clearly moving the rats out of the way so that you can kill him. And it's like, this is your one chance. And so then you take your sling out and take care of that. And screen fades to black, credits roll. After the credits, we get like a year later, and Amicia's in like the mountain cabin that she was trying to take Hugo to. She's shaved her head completely, so now she looks completely like a boy, completing the ridiculous nonsense agenda-driven experience here. And just to go on a little rant about this. Like, okay, I can buy it a bit, right? That it's like, okay, you're like in the woods by yourself, but she wasn't. She was with Lucas for most of the time, we find out. But she's in the woods for a year, and she's just like surviving and just trying to recover from this vastly traumatic experience and try to decide what to do with herself. It seems like she was alone for quite an amount of time. So her like just keeping her hair short would like vaguely make sense, but at the same time, she's a teenage girl from like medieval France. Like under no circumstance would there be precedence for her to even consider that was like an option for her to do. Granted, she's gone under a lot of trauma. It just doesn't make any sense, right? The most likely scenario is that she would just grow her hair out and put it back in a ponytail or something, because that's what you do. Like this thing is like shaved to her head, like almost bald. It's like, why would she spend all that time doing that when she could just pull it back and keep going about her day like she's done her entire life? So it's just kind of more stupid bullshit, like unnecessary, makes her look worse, which again is like this whole agenda-driven thing, which is kind of annoying. Anyway, so she's like locking up the cabin with like a literal fucking key, even though it's in the middle of nowhere, and someone could just break down this like rickety old door if they really wanted to get in. Whatever. And Sophia shows up, and she's like, "I got the horses. You ready to go?" And they like chit chat for a little bit, and it's like, "Oh, where's Lucas?" And Lucas, he's gone on his own journey to become like a better alchemist and to learn, and it'll be good for him, and yada yada. Which another one of those bullshit things where it's like, oh, we'll be together and we won't be alone, and you're both still fucking teenagers. And he just is like, oh, I'm gonna peace out. It'll be good for me, and you can go do whatever the fuck you want to do. The ending doesn't hold up from like a character standpoint, and like everything these characters have gone through and suffered through, and yeah, okay, I could give him like the benefit of the doubt and be like, well, Amicia finally learned how to live alone. But it's like, why would she? Human beings love being with other people. Why would she isolate herself like this? And why would Lucas let her after they've gone through all this traumatic experience? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Now, if you get a different ending, yep, there's multiple endings, then it makes a bit more sense. But with this ending, which, I don't know, maybe is not the canon ending. But then again, the other ending doesn't make sense either, because I didn't get it, but I looked it up. I'll talk about it. Anyway. So you and Sophia just wander. It's a walking simulator through the woods, chatting about whatever bullshit. She's like on the straight and narrow trading route situation. She's not being a pirate no mo. And, you get to like the horses, and then she looks off in the distance, and it's like, I'm going to be right back. Is that okay? And Sophia's like, yeah. And so then you do some more walking simulation, and you get to like this big open area with like hawks and shit. And the hawks just reminded me like, oh yeah, there was like that one bad guy that one time that used to hawk. Like, what was the point of that? I guess just to mix it up. Whatever. And then there's like a cairn, which is like a pile of stones you bury people under, sitting there with like flowers and shit. And she goes up and she pulls out this pendant I don't remember ever seeing before. Maybe it's from the first game. I don't know. And she's talking to Hugo, obviously, and telling him, oh, at some point she's like, I'm gonna go with Sophia, and then when I feel in my heart that the Immaculam's back, I'm gonna get off shore and help whoever the new guardian and the new other person are to recover and to make sure this doesn't happen again or some bullshit. Anyway, so she goes and she cries in front of the cairn for Hugo, and like leaves him like another feather and a flower, and then she walks away, and like some very like well-made music plays, and it's sad. It's pretty sad, but it's also kind of dumb. And that's the end of the game. And we get, then we get the second credits roll, and since this is the age of Marvel's cinematics, we know that we got to wait through that as well. And so after that, we see like a baby hand, and we hear like ventilators and people talking about like a kid or something doing something, and then the camera slowly pans up the kid's arm, and we see like black veins, like the Immaculum, and we hear the string like, and it's like, oh shit, it's still here, but now in the modern era or something. I don't know. We just literally see like a blue blanket in this kid's arm, but the noises make it seem like, ventilation at the like the beeping and all that. That's got to be like, I don't know when that stuff was invented, but I'm gonna say like at least the 1960s. Anyway, so that's Plague Tale Requiem. I was far less satisfied with this ending than the previous ending. The game is fun. I didn't like the arena stuff at all, as I've previously mentioned. But the ending and like the defeminization of Amicia at the end of the game like really kind of bothered me. Especially because there's nothing in the story or in her way she like connects with anybody that would make her. It's like seems very forced, the defeminization of her. Because the whole game, she's very caring, she's very nurturing, she's very protective, like all like super high quality like feminine traits, right? Even the way she walks and stuff, it's kind of manly. It just doesn't make any sense because it's like, yeah, I mean, if she was like prepubescent, but she's like post puberty, like she's definitely got like stuff going on, right? And so she's definitely gonna have like the way women walk is very biological compared to men. And so it's kind of like, And then the hair thing kind of irks me as well because, again, it doesn't make any sense and, like, it's unnecessary. And it's really just, like, defeminize her. And I don't know if that, like, what the point of that is. Is it, like, now she's a man and she can live on her own? Like, it's like, what is the message we're trying to get here? And I mentioned there was a second ending, and the second ending isn't any better. Like, it makes more sense why she would be alone, only because in the second ending, Amicia is too much of a coward to, like, take care of business. And so Lucas has to like man the fuck up and kill Hugo, and then she's super mad at him about that. And so at the end, which is the exact same ending, it's just instead of being like, oh, where's Lucas? It's, being like, oh, he's off doing alchemy shit. It's like, oh, so did you and Lucas like ever make up? And she's like, I still can't deal with him, even though it's been a year. For what he did, which is save all of humanity. Like, fuck that guy, right? And so it also doesn't make any sense because it's like, well, why are you living alone? Because it's like, okay, in the first ending, Amicia finally decides like she's got to do the right thing, and she like separates herself from her brother, and it kind of like, it's sad and tragic, but Lucas is always going to be there even though he's not. And then she's got Sophia, even though she wasn't really around either. And then she's living on her own, and that doesn't make any sense. But she like kind of like, you could kind of be like, well, she kind of detached herself from the whole situation. Like she killed her brother and made like a final, I just need some chill time. This is like, I'm just going to be butthurt and live in the woods by myself and never get over the fact that like this thing happened, even though it had to. And I'm not over needing other people to be around me. And I got on the Reddits, of course, and people are upset about the ending for like very odd reasons that I don't really understand. Ooh, I'm gonna crash. Holy cow! It's super rainy here. I'm trying to remember the people are like upset about what was it? I think they were just upset that it was like a bummer ending that came out of nowhere, which I disagree. Like from like the get-go almost, I'm like, this motherfucker's gotta die. And there were times when you got like hope and then the hope was taken away, but that happened so many fucking times. I mean, I joked about it in this like recordings that I'm gonna like smash all together into one thing. Like that it's like, oh, you think things are good, that just means you're fucked. So when it's like, oh, we're gonna do this, and then the ship shows up, or oh, we're gonna do this, and the island is full of crazy people who are gonna murder everyone. Oh, we're gonna do we got this nice town, and immediately there's like rats and you're climbing through like pork guts and stuff. It's like, what? Under no circumstance was I surprised that the ending is a downer, right? I'm just disappointed with how like you had Amicia, who I enjoyed as a character in the first game, and her growth and her like accepting of like the mantlehood of being a warrior, even though she's like a teenage girl, and her like troubles and how she's not like a Mary Sue, even though she kind of is. She is through the gameplay, which is fine, but she's in the game she's constantly struggling and like having a hard time, and she gets like shot and gets really fucked up, but she doesn't really grow as a character. Like the ending is really the time, because it's like everything's so fast, and it's like she comes to accept like reality for what it is and be like, I gotta kill Hugo, and that's the only way for this to work, and it's gonna save him, and I gotta accept that like he's not gonna be in my life, and that I have other people like Lucas and Sophia in my life that I can like take, that I can move on and I can do better, and I can get over it. And then she kind of doesn't at the end, right? And she just like, and again, it's like this, and there's a lot of defeminization, and I dislike defeminization. Like it's like being a woman is so strong, and it's such a powerful thing, and women have such like key traits, and putting them in this situation as a caregiver, because she's like a mom to Hugo, right? But she's also vulnerable, as like these very extremely like feminine, normal, natural feminine traits, and then it's like you just kind of start stripping them away, but there's not like a reason for it. Like if anything, through the traumatic experience, she would lean heavier into it, and at times she leans into it, and it like gives her strength and helps her overcome and helps her do things. And then at the end, it's just like, nah, she's like a fucking bro now. Like whatever, I'm gonna walk with like my hips, my shoulders moving all big, and my shave my head, and like what's up, bro? The fuck, like. Like, I don't understand why you do this. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense for a character as someone who deals with trauma constantly and how people respond to it. This is not how they respond to it. Like, yeah, maybe you shave your head, right, because you were sexually assaulted, but that's not what happened here. There's no circumstance that occurred to her. Like, it's a natural to how human beings function. And, oh, yeah, she's in, like, a crazy experience, but it's like, there's still natural ways. There's still ways human beings respond to things. And this, it's just kind of, and then there's, again, it'd be one thing if it's like the story or the gameplay like brings it up, but it's like, it's all forced. None of it felt natural. And it was just kind of like, okay, of course she shaved her head, right? Like roll my eyes. Like, of course that's fine. Of course she did. Anyway, cool. Well, that's the game. I enjoyed it. It's fun. The story's pretty good. It was emotional. And yeah, catch y'all later.